Chapter 10. The week seemed to rush by and soon enough it was the day of Sasuke's inauguration as Hokage. The entire village had turned out to see the event, most to see what their new Hokage would say in his speech, others in anticipation of what may happen. It was no secret that Naruto was still bitter about being looked over for a man who didn't deserve the title. Many of those who did not care for Sasuke had shown up with the intention of getting a show. If only they knew. Tsunade stood on the dais looking out over the crowd, her robes and hat gone already. Today was her last day as Hokage, and truth be told she couldn't be happier. She already had plans for the rest of her life: live in a cottage at the Uzumaki household, play with her grandson and watch him grow, have fun, die. It was all planned out, and the sooner she got this asshole into office the sooner she could sit back, watch Konoha go to hell in a handbasket and say, "I told you so." Oh yes, she couldn't wait. This day would be a day to remember, and not because of the new Hokage. Jiraiya stood behind Tsunade with his arms folded, a scowl on his face. Today should have been Naruto's day, not the Uchiha's. It was taking all he had not to rip the smug little bastard's head off. Although he's only got one useful head left, thought Jiraiya with an evil grin on his face. He smiled at the memory of that one-sided fight at Naruto's wedding. Ah, good times, good times. If his student's plan went off like he hoped, that traitorous Uchiha bastard would spend his entire Hokageship wallowing in misery and humiliation. Jiraiya had to admit, his student was a genius when it came to the embarrassment of another person. Lee stood in the crowd by Neji and Tenten, literally bouncing in place. When Tenten had asked him what the hell he was so excited for, he had simply told her she'd have to wait to see. Neji had turned and asked him if he was excited that Sasuke was now Hokage. Lee had stopped bouncing immediately, and his face grew dark, a look that should never have been on Rock Lee's face. We all know that is Naruto's rightful place, Neji. The title of Hokage was to be his and his alone. If Naruto had become Hokage, I would have been loyal to him till death. With our Hokage being who he is now, I am loyal to Konoha, not the Hokage. I may follow orders, but I will never bow, and I will never show respect to a man that lost mine years ago. I fight for the people of Konoha, but as far as I am concerned, the council and our new Hokage can go straight to hell. I washed my hands of this corrupt government a long time ago. Neji and Tenten had stared with awe at this Lee. He seemed to be a commanding presence, like he demanded respect, and he was not one to be trifled with. What they did not know was that by unlocking his spiritual power and becoming a summoner, Lee had seemingly grown up overnight. He was still hyperactive and goofy, but he could be serious the next moment. He had become even more guy-like. He had turned back to stare up at the dais, uncaring how the ceremony went now. He just wanted to see Naruto's gift now. The rest of the Rookie Nine all stood scowling at what awaited them. They were all certain that this would not bode well for Konoha in the future. An uncaring, abusive, unfriendly Hokage who only cared about power and what others could do for him. Oh yes, absolute best choice. Let's not pick the more powerful, upbeat, friendly, and personable hyperactive idiot who had done more for this country in his short life than most do in their entire ninja career. Akamaru growled while he stood beside Kiba, and Kiba petted his aging partner's head. He wasn't happy either. None of them were. Kakashi stood behind his new Hokage with that same apathetic look that he always had. On the inside, however, his mind was in constant turmoil. Had he helped create a monster, one that threatened innocent children and his loved ones? Had he neglected his other students too much? Had he given everything he could teach to a man who would misuse it? Nothing hurts a teacher more than knowing that what skills they have taught are not used for the purpose they were taught for. The Chidori was to be used to kill in the name of Konoha, and yet for years Sasuke had used it in the name of Orochimaru. Kakashi sighed heavily. When had things gone so far downhill? He had abandoned more comrades for what he was now deeming an unworthy cause. Surely Obito was turning in his grave. Sakura stood with her two children close by to Naruto and Ino while Hikaru rode Jinmaki. Naruto had not summoned any foxes to be the guardians of Jugo and Karen that day because he would need every ounce of chakra he had if things went wrong. Sakura stared up at the dais with sorrowful eyes. She had left a good man behind for a monster of a man. She would never trade Jugo and Karen for anything, but she could only imagine what their life would have been like if Naruto had been their father. She may never find love again being the ex-wife of the Hokage, but Naruto in the past few weeks had been more of a father to her children than Sasuke ever had. Training them in his style, teaching them that honor and honesty were good qualities, showing them that it was okay to be children and not mindless little Uchiha drones. At least in the Uzumaki household her children would grow up to be good people. And when they came to possess their Sharingan, if they possessed it, Naruto would show them how to wield it with pride and honor. He had already told her that if he had his way her children would not end up thieves like their father. They would use the Sharingan only against an enemy, never against a comrade. Her gaze turned up as the din of the crowd grew louder. Not much longer now. Ino stood beside her husband, her fingers laced into his, clutching tightly. Naruto had not moved or spoken since they arrived. She knew what he was planning, and honestly her role scared her. She knew that she could do it, and she was proud that he trusted her so. But this was a dangerous gamble, and there was no telling what would happen if his plan backfired. Hopefully before everything got underway Tsunade could assuage the crowd's fears and pave the way for a smooth transition. She leaned heavily on her king, and he responded by taking his hand from hers and wrapping it around her waist. She could hear the whispers from all over as people pointed and stared at the Uzumakis. After their wedding they had opted against hiding their looks, and fortunately Konoha had accepted them as they were. They were both too kind-hearted and had done too much for Konoha to hold any sort of grudge against them. Besides that, the children loved them, and their fuzzy tails and ears were always being groped or hugged in public. Little girls absolutely adored Naruto and little boys loved Ino. Ino suddenly felt his grip tighten around her waist, and she turned to see him looking upward. Tsunade stepped forward and began her speech. Showtime. Scene change, Tsunade stepped forward and the crowd quieted as her voice boomed out over the throng. Today marks the last day of my tenure as Hokage. I have been proud and privileged to serve as your leader for all these years. Unfortunately, my time is at an end and I must pass the torch to a new generation. I hope you are happy with your new Hokage, and may he serve Konoha as faithfully as I did. The word faithfully and its connotation was not lost on anyone in the crowd. Tsunade had just taken a jab at the new Hokage and basically dared him to do anything. Sasuke instead kept his nose in the air and accepted his place at the fore of the dais, overlooking a quiet crowd. His robes and the hat most everyone thought did not suit him. They were made instead for a man who was born to be a Hokage, a man destined to wear the hallowed robes and the venerated hat. Scanning his eyes over the crowd, Sasuke locked eyes with the one person he was looking for and activated his Manjikyu Sharingan as a taunt. Noticing the slight twitch in Naruto's muscles, he smirked and let his eyes revert back to normal. That flinch was like gold to him. It sated his need for dominance over a man who was more than his equal. He had lost the battle at the wedding, but today he won the war. My fellow people of Konoha, I am not a man of many words, so I shall be brief, and then I shall turn the podium back over to Lady Tsunade so that she can bring in the festivities. I will serve Konoha to the best of my abilities and will be faithful while I do so. My loyalties lie with the most powerful nation in the world. May Konoha live long. His speech was met with a half-hearted smattering of applause and yells from his supporters. He couldn't care less about the welfare of these people. Now that his brother was dead and he didn't have to worry about Orochimaru, he was the most powerful man alive. He had power both physical and political, and when he was done with the council the power would rest with the Hokage again. He would not be a figurehead like the third and the fifth. He stepped back and turned to leave when Tsunade placed her hand on his shoulder and addressed him icily. Congratulations, Hokage-sama. But before you go, we have decided to implement a new tradition when a Hokage comes to power. Since we have all the Sannin present, we wish to show our power to all the dignitaries in the crowd and all villages everywhere by summoning the great beasts. Do you agree? Sasuke, ever willing to show his greatness and power, nodded his head and waited to be told to summon. Tsunade turned and strode back to the edge of the dais. Hook, line, and sinker. People of Konoha, I am grateful for this glorious day, and may today's festivities bring you all joy. But before the festival commences, I have a treat for you all. Since all of the Sannin are present, we wish to give you a show by summoning the great beasts, since this may be the only time some of you get to see them. We have also been blessed with the signing of a fourth contract, the Fox contract, making them the Sannin. Uzumaki Ino is the primary holder of the contract, but another has signed it and will be responsible for it later in his life. But for the moment, one of our Sannin has an announcement to make. Uzumaki Naruto, come forth. Naruto gave Ino another squeeze and leapt to the top of the dais in a single bound. He gave Tsuni a small hug and turned to face the crowd, his tails waving in the wind proudly, his ears twitching, catching every sound. His voice boomed out and he reminded the older generation of a previous Hokage. My people, It is my pleasure to come before you today as the Toad Sannin. I have served Konoha in this capacity for several years and hope that I lived up to my predecessor's expectations. I hope I did Konoha proud. Therefore it is with a heavy heart and yet much joy that I must pass on my title to someone more worthy. A deafening roar ripped through the crowd. If Naruto was not worthy of the title, then who? How could he abandon such a prestigious position? Was losing the title of Hokage that hard on him? Now let's calm down. I'm leaving the Toad contract in good hands. I simply have other urgent matters to attend to and they will take up all of my time and energy. So without further ado, Rock Lee, come forward. Well, that certainly got a reaction. Rock Lee was a damn good ninja, but what was he being called forward for? He couldn't use chakra and to summon required chakra. Everyone saw Lee leap from his spot beside a slack-jawed Neji and Tenten and watched him approach Naruto with a serious look on his face. Rock Lee, I have chosen you as my successor. Will you serve Konoha in the capacity given you with your life on your honor? I will. Would you lay your life down for the people? Protect them with both arms and never let go of your ideals? I shall. Tell the people, Lee. Shout to them your dream. To prove that even someone who cannot use chakra can be a splendid ninja. That is my dream. And today you achieve it, Lee. Today I bestow upon you a title that only a few can claim. Konoha, I give you your new Toad Sannin. And with that, Naruto untied his horned forehead protector and presented it to Lee, tying it around his forehead while Lee stood with his eyes closed and tears streaming down his face. Silence fell upon the crowd until a familiar booming voice came from the back. Yash. My student is now a splendid ninja. You have done it, Lee, you have achieved your dream. And the crowd went wild. Tsunade watched as Naruto and Lee embraced each other and stepped forward to the dais again. The crowd calmed when she smiled. Now everyone outside the gates. We will need the fields outside if we are to summon all the great beasts at once. There may very well never be another shindig like this, so bring your camera. I got mine. Several people laughed at her enthusiasm, but Tsunade had an underlying motive. If Naruto's plan came off without a hitch, then she would need evidence of everyone's faces, especially Sasuke's. Oh yes, today was a good day. Will Rock Lee, Haruno, Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Ino please go to the field to begin your summons? Scene change. Rock Lee as the new summoner was asked to go first. He let out a long breath and steadied his nerves. He knew that many didn't think he could summon, but he'd show them. Naruto had put his faith in him and Gamabunta had accepted him. Today he was a splendid ninja. With a cry of Kuchios no Jutsu, the smoke appeared and Lee rose rapidly in the air while the whole of Konoha watched in awe. Lee had just done the impossible again by summoning a toad without chakra. The familiar shape and booming voice of Gamabunta cut through the air. Ah, it is good to be outside again. Hello, Lee. Beautiful day today, isn't it? I can't wait to catch up with Katsuya and see who the new snake boss is. And we get a treat today, do we not? Seeing the fox boss. Oh, what a glorious day. The Konoha Nin watched with wide eyes and open mouths as Lee and Bunta bantered back and forth like old friends. Truly, Lee had usurped Uzumaki Naruto as the most surprising ninja. Next up was Sakura, who had left her children with Naruto and Genmaki, and she almost didn't hear her name called. Lee had pulled off another upset. She got her act together and summoned forth Katsuya. Ah, Lady Sakura. Good to see you again and under friendly terms this time. Hello, Gamabunta. I see your summoner is as eccentric as the last one. Bunta laughed and shook out his pipe. Come now, Katsuya. You're just jealous because my summoners have all the personality. It's true they're all eccentric, but they're also always the most powerful. Katsuya nodded her head and all turned to face the new Hokage. Sasuke smirked and performed the katas to summon the new snake boss. A large purple cobra emerged from the smoke, but whereas Manda had been rude and imposing, the new boss seemed regal and reserved. Uchiha Sasuke, Rokudame Hokage of Konoha, we meet at last. I am Handra, ruler of the snakes. It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance. What can I do for you? Well, at least you're nicer than Manda. This is just a demonstration of power for Konoha, but if you can stick around because the fox boss is going to be shown for the first time. It should be quite a show. I see. Do you know who the fox boss is? No, I don't. No one does. I see. I shall stay and meet him. Since the Vulpine are now allied with your village, perhaps it would be beneficial for the snake to be allied with him as well. I shall stay. It was now Ino's turn, and she was the most anticipated act besides Lee. She gulped as all eyes turned to her, and she stood with her hands at her sides. She hoped that Naruto was the one who answered her call, but she knew that he would come. She was the queen, so who better to answer her call than the king? She took a deep breath and shouted out Kuchios no Jutsu. Eyebrows raised as she made no hand signs, and some began to chuckle that she was so nervous she forgot to make katas. All whispering was hushed as flames arose from the ground and Ino rose into the air atop a fox thrice as large as Gamabunta with 9 tails. Once the flames diminished, the fox threw its head back and roared loudly, its 9 tails swishing in the air. The other summons looked shocked. Katsuya and Handra, because they had never seen a fox summon Bunta, because Naruto was bigger than the last Kyuubi. Tsunade stepped forward when the shouting began to get serious. People were still afraid of the Kyuubi, and she wanted to assuage their fears. People, please. This is not the same fox that was sealed in Naruto. That fox was absorbed into the seal and is no longer alive. This fox is our ally and we should treat him as such. While Tsunade was calming the crowd, the other Yonin looked in awe at Ino and her summon. Lee couldn't believe the size of the fox, and yet there was something familiar about it. Sakura thought the same as Lee. Sasuke, however, was fuming at being shown up yet again by an Uzumaki. First Naruto and now his wife. He'd simply plot his revenge for later. The shout stopped when they heard Ino shout. Well, go on. Introduce yourself to them. The fox opened its eyes for the first time and the crowd gasped. Instead of the horrible red of the Kyuubi, they were a most beautiful blue like the sky or the clear sea. They were captivating. The fox cocked its head and gave a foxy grin, making many think they had seen that somewhere before. Its voice, while booming and very loud, was gentle and kind. This brought more confusion to the throng. Why was this fox so familiar? Hello, Konoha. I am the new Kyuubi chosen to take the place of the former king of foxes. I wish to make up for the attack by our foolish former leader by offering our assistance to your village so long as the family and friends of the Uzumaki family are allowed to live peacefully within the country's borders. This is our pact with the Uzumakis in return for the suffering of the people. May Konoha live long and prosper. The words of the people were undeniable. They were safe from the wrath of the foxes and had gained a powerful ally. The crowd watched as Genmaki strode forward and bowed before his king, his nose touching the ground. The fox looked hard at the smaller fox and spoke. Genmaki, what have I told you about bowing? You are to stand beside me as my friend, not before me as a servant. Rise. Genmaki rose and felt a presence behind him. All the villagers watched as Uzumaki Hikaru strode forward and stood looking up at the giant fox. He cocked his head this way and that, making Sakura giggle at how much like his father he was. Speaking of which, where is Naruto? She thought. Her thoughts were suddenly shattered when Hikaru's voice rang out over the field. Daddy? The giant fox looked down at the child with pink and blonde hair and gave him a hard glance with his blue eyes. Daddy? Do I look like your father, Kit? How do you figure that one such as me could be your father? Hikaru just laughed and launched himself at the fox's paw, hugging it. Because of the way you laugh and your eyes. No one's eyes are that blue but my daddy's. Your fur feels the same as his and you smell like him too. Stop pretending you aren't my daddy. The giant fox threw his head back and laughed long and hard, making many people look back and forth between him and Hikaru, confused as all get out. It eventually looked down at the boy and lowered its head to let Ino off. She leapt to the ground and swept the little boy up, planting a kiss on his cheek before turning them both to stare at the widely grinning fox. Never could put anything past you, Hassan? The rest of you should be ashamed letting an 8-year-old figure it out before you. Especially the rest of the Yonin. I guess brains really do only run in my family. Everyone watched with slack jaws as the fox began to shrink into the shape of a man. It gradually got smaller and smaller until the familiar shape of a much-beloved blonde took form and stood upright again, his hands on his hips, his grin overwhelming, his bearing still regal. Hikaru broke the tension once again by leaping from his mother's arms into his father's, who gave him a big hug. One by one, Tsunade, Irika, Jiraiya and the rest of his friends approached him to see if he was still real. Lee was the first to make it there, and he was nearly out of breath, a feat in itself considering who Lee was. Naruto, my rival, is this why you had to give up your role as a Sannin? Because you are now a demon? The king of foxes? Yep. That's me. I'm still the #1 surprising ninja in Konoha even if I am a demon. Hinata stepped forward dragging Kiba and a slightly stupefied Akamaru. She smiled at Naruto and hugged him and began inspecting his tails and ears. Satisfied that he was still Naruto, she stepped back and grabbed Akamaru again. Go ahead, Akamaru. It's still Naruto. You should know better than anyone that he's harmless. Akamaru shuffled forward slowly, sniffing the whole way. He got right up against Naruto and began to smell all over him. He inspected Naruto's tail, and when he went to sniff Naruto's, but one of the tails whacked him on the nose and he leapt away yelping in surprise. Finding his nose wasn't hurt, he eyed Naruto carefully before trotting forward and leaping upon the Fox Lord, pinning him to the ground while he licked his face. All the villagers let out a breath they didn't know they were holding and came forward to swamp the new summons of the village. Everyone was celebrating, and no one more than Naruto. Despite becoming what he had always feared he would become in his life, he was loved and wanted. He was needed, and there was nothing more satisfying than that feeling. Cries of joy rang out and the festival began in earnest. The only person missing was the new Hokage, who had opted to go to his new office and brood the night away. Naruto had surpassed him yet again. He had stolen Naruto's dream, but Naruto had found something better. How was he ever supposed to find peace if the dobe kept beating him at life? Scene change, Naruto flopped onto the couch after putting all the children to bed. They had insisted on staying up for the festival, but Naruto knew they were fighting sleep and decided to go home. His eyes were closed and he had a small smile on his face when he felt a weight on his body and suddenly someone else's lips were smashed into his own. He opened his eyes to find his wife on top of him, her tail swishing happily behind her. What was all that about? She opened her eyes and grinned at him cheekily. Her eyes half-lidded and eyelashes batting, she spoke in a low and sultry voice. You were so hot in your fox form. I mean beautiful. Words cannot describe how sexy you were. Would you care to find out how to mate like real foxes in the bedroom? Before you two start any bumping and grinding, I have a few questions for you both. Naruto and Ino both groaned. Leave it to Sakura to ruin their fun. Ino turned her head and growled at her found again friend. Can't you see I have business to take care of here, forehead? My king needs attention, and as a queen I can't let his scepter remain unpolished. Get my drift? Oh, I get your drift. I just want to know what the hell the two of you are. Naruto grinned at Sakura and just rubbed Ino's back, making her purr. Why, Sakura, I'm offended. I'm the king of foxes and Ino is my queen. We're fox demons and royalty. Now I believe you were interrupting something, so do you mind? What about Hikaru? Is he a demon? Is that all you're worried about? No, Sakura, our son is human and always will be. He's abnormally strong for one so young, but that because he's our son. My stamina and your strength and chakra control. He'll grow up to be a better ninja than either of us. Our son will be fine. Now please, we're about to celebrate whether you're in the room or not, so unless you want a lesson in how flexible foxes are. Alright, I'm going. And Naruto? Thank you for everything you've done for me. I don't deserve it, but thank you for taking my children and I into your home. I'll never be able to repay you for your kindness. Can you help Ino raise Hikaru upright while I take care of my other duties? Absolutely. Then you can repay me. Now then, my queen, where were we? Sakura ran from the room as quickly as she could. Unfortunately, she wasn't quick enough to escape the sounds of yelps and growls coming from the room. Those two are a couple of animals in the bedroom. Oh well, if Naruto's anything like when we were married, Ino's going to have a smile for days. Sakura blushed at her thoughts and walked back to her new home. She tried not to reminisce about the past but couldn't help it. Deciding to take a page out of her master's book, she cracked open a bottle of sake to wash away the memories. The more shit-faced she got, though, the more the blush would deepen. Before she drifted off into a sake-induced slumber, she had one final thought. I always knew he was an animal at heart. Chapter 11. Sadly, all good things must come to an end, and Naruto soon would have to go to his new kingdom. None of his friends and family were looking forward to this event, as he would have to leave and not be home except for the weekends or if it was an emergency. Naruto too was troubled by this. He thought of his poor son who had just now got his mother back only to lose his father for significant amounts of time. The boy was tough though he'd pull through. He was his father's son after all. Ino was not taking their last full days together very well though. She loved every minute they spent together true but she couldn't help but feel dejected. She wanted to rule by Naruto's side, be his queen, but she knew that Hikaru needed guidance and the children had to be protected. Sakura was strong but she couldn't protect them like Ino could. Sasuke was sure to try to take his revenge one day and Naruto couldn't be around all the time. Despite Hikaru warming back up to Sakura, Ino was still his mother. She was the one he ran to when he had a problem. Truth be told, he would probably always resent Sakura a little bit, but he would one day trust her fully again. Time heals all wounds and all that. Naruto was both psyched and downtrodden at the same time. He was excited to see his kingdom even though he had no idea what to expect. Maybe one day he could take Ino to their new home, probably once Hikaru was grown and could protect himself. He frowned to himself. His son was mortal. He was immortal. He and Ino would have a long life while his first child would die before him. Nothing saddens a parent more than knowing that their child will pass on before them. Ridding his mind of such troubling thoughts, he turned to more pleasant things. He smiled as he thought of his friend Lee, the new toad Yanin. Lee deserved it so much more than anyone. Sakura had come to live on the Uzumaki estates with her children. He tried to be objective about this. He didn't really want to have Sakura around, but after Sasuke's little display at the wedding he couldn't leave her or her innocent children with that monster. Jugo and Karen, it seemed, loved their new home. They were able to act like children here, not mindless Uchiha drones, and they absolutely loved Hikaru. Having an older brother was such a novel idea to them. Hikaru loved having younger siblings. They seemed to hang on his every word and action. Annoying at times how they idolized him, but it was no different than how Konohamaru used to idolize him. He was so lost in thought, reminiscing about the past and thinking toward the future, that he didn't hear his wife slip in the room or feel her climb onto the bed until her arms were around his neck and her tail wrapped around his. She pressed herself into his back and sighed, feeling the ever-present warmth that seemed to radiate from him. If she was ever lost in a blizzard with him, she'd never die of frostbite. She nipped at his ear with her fangs and bent to whisper in his ear. "Let's take a walk, dear. You need to clear your head and we need some time alone. Let Sakura watch the children. You and I need to talk." He nodded and took her by the hand, leaving to find Sakura. They found her and the kids out back, the ever-stoic Jinchuuriki watching while he half-dozed and Sakura sat against the side of the house on the grass. Hikaru, to Naruto's surprise and fatherly pride, was teaching Jugo and Karen his Vulpine Taijutsu. Having no natural affinity for bestial nature, the two small children were more rolling around than running on all fours, but it was entertaining to watch. Hikaru would demonstrate with no flaws since he was very proficient in this style, but Jugo and Karen, having been trained in the Uchiha style since they could walk, were too inflexible for it. Although watching Jugo try to run with his ass in the air because he wasn't flexible enough to bend his legs properly made even Jinchuuriki chuckle. This was what the children needed, though they needed each other. Sakura finally seemed to notice the two demons standing by her and she smiled up at them. "Hey! What are you two doing out here?" Ino returned the smile and looked back at the children. "We're going for a walk and wanted to let you know. We'll be back later on, so if you want to take the kids for lunch, there's money on the counter. Tonight I'm going to make Naruto whip up some of his barbecue and try a recipe that he learned when he got the old Kyuubi's knowledge." "Oh? What's it called?" "Potato salad." Sakura raised her eyebrow and gave Naruto a funny look. "Is it any good?" He shrugged and grinned back at her. "I guess so. All I have is the mental picture of it and an idea of how to make it. But it should be good. We'll see in any event. I'll make something for dessert too." "That sounds good, Naruto. You two go on now. I'll watch the kids. Jinchuuriki'll help me, right, Jinchuuriki?" A snort was the only answer she got and she thumped the fox on the ear, making him growl. He still didn't like Sakura, but he at least tolerated her presence since she seemed to make his charge happy. He looked up with half-lidded eyes at his king. "Don't worry, my lord. I'll watch the kits and make sure they stay out of trouble. You and Lady Ino go and have fun. Just remember that you're making barbecue and I want some too." "Of course, Jinchuuriki. Well, we're off. See you tonight." Scene change, Naruto noticed that he wasn't getting glares anymore as he walked through the village. Instead he got smiles and friendly waves. He was a protector of Konoha and he had sworn a demonic oath to serve as long as his family lived here. Small children would run up and grab his tails and he would swat them playfully with another, making them laugh and squeal with joy before they ran off. He glanced over at his mate and saw she had a content smile on her face. She caught him looking at her and smirked, deciding to talk to him psychically instead of out loud. Thinking about the glares or lack thereof, honey? It's all because of your declaration to protect them as the QB instead of destroying them for the way they treated you. A lot of people have had to take a good long look in the mirror because of your selflessness. Enjoy the moment. You deserve it. It's not just that, sweetie. It's the fact that I hope they continue treating you like this when I'm gone. I don't want you ostracized because of irrational fear of what we are now. I don't want Hikaru being treated like I was because of who his father is. I want your lives as peaceful as possible. Naruto, you can't protect us forever. I can take care of myself, and both Sakura and I will be watching the children. Don't stretch yourself too thin worrying about matters in both realms. We took this walk to relax, didn't we? Not to worry about would-haves or could-haves. Sigh. You're right. I'm sorry. So what shall we do? I don't know. You're the surprise ninja, you're the demon lord. You think of something. Naruto stopped walking and nearly jerked Ino off her feet since he didn't let go of her hand. She squeaked and turned to give him the evil eye, but he was staring at the clouds. A large feral grin spread across his face and he turned to look at his queen. Yeah, I've got an idea. I want you to hop on my back. She blinked twice and looked at him like he'd lost his damn mind. Do what now? When I tell you hop on my back. You're going for a ride. Before she could say any more, he dropped her hand and stepped back to the middle of the street. People stopped and stared, wondering what he could possibly be doing. Most had come to accept the fact that a demon walked among them, but Naruto was still a prankster at heart, and the people of Konoha had learned never to let their guard down around him over the years. All eyes present watched in fascination as he was engulfed in flame, and once the flames peaked they receded to reveal a horse-sized red fox with familiar blue eyes. Ino glared at him while he wagged his tails and laid on the ground in front of her. Well, what are you waiting for? Get on. She threw a leg over his back and sat down, grabbing a handful of fur. Before she could even squeal in surprise, he jumped off the ground and practically flew through the market. A blood-red blur was all the people saw, along with hearing a banshee shriek. Ino was laughing and screaming with joy. She'd never gone this fast in her life, and it was exhilarating. She leaned to the right, trying to see Naruto's face in his transformed state. She could see his tongue lolling out one side of his mouth, a wide grin plastered on his face, his eyes gleaming with playfulness. She always did like that look in his eyes. It suited him, and yet it always meant trouble. Trouble she usually had to end up explaining to the Hokage later while dragging his sorry ass by the tails to atone for some prank or misdeed. She sighed and her smile came back immediately after. It must just be his kitsune nature. Naruto meanwhile knew exactly where he wanted to go. He was going to the park to explain to the children why he couldn't come around and play anymore. He saw the familiar structures of the park coming up fast and threw on the brakes, grinding to a halt and nearly throwing Ino over his head due to his sudden stop. He heard her skeet grab roughly at his fur, and then she knocked him over the head, cursing at him for stopping so quickly without warning her. Naruto simply grinned at her and shook his head, ridding himself of the fog in his brain she had given him. Once his head was clear, he turned his attention to the now gathered throng of children and adults in front of him. Ino slid from his back and stood beside him, wondering why he had brought them here. Naruto transformed back into his human form and turned his head so that he was slightly looking at her. I brought us here to tell the children I'm sorry that I can't be around to summon foxes for them anymore. To tell them that if they want to play with toads they'll have to get Lee to do it for them. I just want to tell them to still be friends with Hikaru, Jugo, and Karen. I want things to stay normal for our son and our future children. That's all. Our future children? Naruto looked up at her with a foxy smirk. Of course. We have to get started soon. Not only is it a requirement for being the Vulpine Regents, but your mother and father threatened to kill me if I didn't give them grandchildren by the end of the year. We'll continue this later though, okay? I can't be having these kind of thoughts while I'm talking to children. He turned back to the kids and started explaining to them the details of his departure. Ino just got an evil grin and began to send Naruto mental pictures of their honeymoon. Stop it, Ino. She grinned and gave him another mental picture of their first night together. I mean it, Ino. Stop. I can't concentrate. Her grin got even bigger and she told him what she was going to do to him after his first night back from the Fox Kingdom. He turned to her, his blue eyes wide, and he snarled at her. Damn it, Ino. Stop doing that. I'm trying to talk to children here and you're sending me those kinds of thoughts. The people gathered all stared at him and one of the children asked him what kind of thoughts in a tiny voice. Good thing the heat was on the inside because the blush he had would have burned them all. I can't tell you that, little one. They're private thoughts and not for little ones. Okay? Now then, you kids all like my son Hikaru, right? A chorus of yes rang out over the playground. Naruto noticed that a few of the girls had blushes on their faces at the mention of Hikaru. Well, if they liked Hikaru, they'd surely love Jugo and Karen. That's good, kids. I just have one more favor to ask of you, okay? Hikaru recently found out that he had a brother and sister and they don't have many friends. Will you play with them like you do with Hikaru? Can you promise me that? Another round of yes and Naruto's line of questioning was over. The kids' line, however, was hardly over. Naruto-sama, was that really big fox the other day really you? Of course it was. I'm a demon and that was my true form. But I prefer this form you see before you. It's more comfortable to me. Can we become demons too? Haha, no, little ones, I'm sorry, but you can't become demons. I'm a special case and so is my wife. The small children all looked at Ino and she cocked her head in a very fox-like manner. What? Are you really a demon too, Miss Ino? Of course. I have a tail, don't I? And these cute fuzzy ears? A small red-haired girl stepped forward and gazed up at Ino with wide eyes. Can I touch them? Ino laughed and sat down cross-legged, letting the children pet her ears and tail. She purred in contentment and looked at her mate, who had transformed back into a fox and was curled up, letting the children climb all over him. She looked the other way and saw all the adults laughing and pointing, happy that their children were having such fun. A sudden idea popped into her head and she sent Naruto a mental message. Hey Naruto? Can I turn into a fox? You should be able to, I guess. You're a demon after all. Try it. How? Just imagine yourself as a fox. Imagine yourself transforming into a fox. It's that easy. Can I control the size? Of course. You just can't get as big as me. Not yet anyway. You don't have enough power yet. You should be able to get as big as me right now though. She nodded and stood up, telling the children to stand back. Clearing her thoughts, she imagined herself changing into a fox, and when she opened her eyes she felt the ground in 4 different places. Wait, 4 different places? She looked down and saw her paws and lifted them one by one. Turning her head, she looked at her mate and saw him and everyone looking at her with wide eyes. Peering into his mind to see his thoughts, she thanked her dark purple fur for hiding the epidermis underneath. My God, Ino. You're beautiful. I'm so lucky to have you for a mate. So what do I look like? A demoness ready for the hunt. A wild beauty untamed by anyone. Who thought you were so poetic? Who thought you were so cute with your tongue hanging out? It is not. Ino turned back to the wide-eyed and smiling children and asked them. Is my tongue hanging out? Tell me the truth now. Her answer were several giggles and nodding heads. She narrowed her eyes and looked back at her mate. You knew this would happen and you didn't tell me? Ah, but Ino, I thought you looked cute. I'll deal with you later. So kids, how do I look? Much better than Naruto, right? The girls all agreed with her while the boys liked Naruto's look better. Ino still didn't know how she looked and wanted to get a good idea, so they bade everyone at the park goodbye and made their way back home, still transformed with their tails intertwined. People on the street stopped and looked at the strange couple, and one older couple stopped them, asking who they were. Naruto answered in that deep voice that only summons and demons have. We are the Uzumakis, Naruto and Ino. How can we help you? I just wanted to know if that was you, Naruto-sama. Your wife and you make a perfect couple, whatever skin you're wearing. Don't you think so, dear? The old man nodded his head and smiled at Naruto, who returned the smile, Good thing the people don't view him as a threat because smiles in fox form could easily be translated as a show of baring teeth, and bade them good day. He sighed happily and looked up at the sky. Today was a good day. I hope that my family has many more of these in the years to come. Scene change, Naruto and Ino walked through the door to find their family in the living room playing a game. Sakura raised her eyebrow at the two foxes and looked at the one beside Naruto questionably. Ino? Is that you? Of course it is, forehead. How many other purple-furred foxes do you know? Okay, that's definitely Ino. Now how did the two of you get in here without hands? Naruto waved his tails wildly and smiled toward Genmaki, who smirked back at him. The same way Genmaki gets around without hands. We used our tails. Such wonderful appendages they are. Useful for all kinds of things. Now if you'll excuse me, I have some dinner to make. Naruto transformed back into his human state and walked off into the kitchen, leaving a wide-eyed Jugo and Karen and a dumbfounded Sakura. Finding her wits again, she turned to the still foxy Ino. Why haven't you transformed back yet? I want to see what I look like in this state before I change back. I'll be back in a second. Ino turned and opened the door to hers and Naruto's bedroom by twisting the knob with the tip of her tail, ignoring the look Sakura gave her. She flipped on the light switch and strode in front of the full-length mirror, admiring her form. Her fur was still the royal purple of her tail and ears, but her paws were a pure white and her eyes retained their normal light blue. She swished her tail back and forth and sat on her haunches, admiring her looks from every angle. Damn, I'm a sexy bitch. Actually, I believe the term is sexy vixen. Foxes don't have bitches. She twisted around quickly and gazed up at her mate's face. She had the good nature to look sheepish. Sorry, I hope I didn't offend. Not at all. Now kindly transform back to your human form. I like you like this, but it's awkward to kiss you when you're basically licking me back. She gave him a glare and changed back before launching herself at him, pinning him to the bed behind him. You know, as much as I want to do this, I still have barbecue and potato salad to make. I just came in here to give you your gift for unlocking your animal form. And what would that be? This. He reached around behind her and began to pump chakra into her tail, causing her to scream while he whispered soothing words into her ear and tried to kiss away her tears. The pain was gone before she knew it, and she laid in his arms exhausted from the brief ordeal. Her thoughts finally became unclouded and she snuggled into his chest more while her tails fought with his. Wait, tails? She whipped her head around and stared at the two purple appendages behind her and squealed with delight before kissing Naruto with much passion and love, causing his eyes to widen greatly. After nearly a minute of her sucking the breath out of him, he began to flail his arms and tails wildly, but she wouldn't relinquish her hold on him or his tongue. With a burst of strength, he separated himself from her and leaped off the bed and to the door. She remained on her knees looking at him seductively before practically purring. You. Me. Here. Now. I can't, Ino. I have to fix dinner. Maybe later tonight, okay? No. You and me. Right now. I have never been this horny in all my life. Get over her or I'm coming over there. I can't. The kids'll hear us. Ino made some hand signs and the walls glowed white for a brief second before returning to normal. Now they can't. Get over here. Now. But Ino. Uzumaki Naruto. Get your ass over here and do as your queen says, or the Vulpine will need a new king. Gulp. Yes, ma'am. Scene change. It was nearly 45 minutes later that a bleary-eyed Naruto and a more than satisfied Ino came out of the bedroom. Seeing the look on her ex-husband's face and the pure glow coming from Ino, she could guess what happened. Poor Naruto, if I used to wear him out before he was a demon, I can only guess what Ino did to him. She was about to ask smugly what they were doing when he turned his half-lidded gaze to her. Ino had her way with me. I don't want to talk about it. Damn Vixen and her newfound powers. He walked off into the kitchen, still muttering under his breath, while Ino flopped down beside her on the couch and let out a happy sigh. Sakura, ever the inquisitive mind, couldn't help herself. So how was it? Ino seemed to finally notice her friend and housemate and smiled at her. I wore his ass out. Remember way back when I said you fucked up letting him go? Girl, you have no idea. However good he was as a human is nothing compared to how good it is as a demon. And being a demon myself, it just amplifies it. Oh, I can't wait for next time. Sigh. I know I fucked up. Wish I could go back and undo everything, but then you wouldn't be happy. I wish I had him back, or at least had a man that was as good as him. Ino looked at Sakura out of the corner of her eyes and gave her a sly grin. You know, I know a certain summoner who's had a crush on you since childhood. He's single, kind-hearted, loves kids, and if he had someone with a fashion sense to dress him up, he could actually be quite handsome. Not that he isn't now, he just needs fashion guidance. Sakura looked at Ino and narrowed her eyes. You better not be talking about Lee. I like him, but I don't think he's husband or boyfriend material. And Naruto was? Naruto needed someone to polish him up to show the world what a catch he was. Do you realize how jealous I was that you had such a catch and I didn't? I tried Sai for a while, but we were just too different. Lee's just like Naruto back then. He needs someone to help him and love him for him. Give him a chance once you're healed from the divorce and you might just be surprised. Oh, okay. And here I was going to ask if you'd share Naruto. Don't ever joke about that. I don't share and you know it. Besides, with the way I wear him out, what makes you think he'd have any energy for you? Well, he could just lay there and I'd do all the work. Both women laughed at this, but Naruto with his sensitive hearing had heard everything from the kitchen and was furiously blushing. He decided to concentrate fully on dinner and not listen to the ladies. By the way, Ino, since when do you have two tails? Oh, these? The new tail was a gift for finding my animal form. I guess when I pass certain milestones, Naruto will gift me with a new tail. The ladies continued with their conversation until a shout of "Dinner's ready" came from the dining room. Everyone made their way in and gaped at the spread on the table. Heaps of barbecue, the large bowl of what they suspected was potato salad and the actual bowl of chef's salad. The smell made all present drool, and when Naruto said dig in, there were no words spoken, only the sound of smacking and satisfied grunts. Ino took a bite of the potato salad and just stared at Naruto, making him worry. Is something wrong with it? It's not good? No dear, it's great. You'll have to dig further into your mind and see if you can find more recipes. Naruto grinned widely before taking a bite of barbecue. Well, if you love this, then you'll die for my dessert. True to form, when he wheeled out dessert, saliva was on tap in every mouth. The giant chocolate cake he had made was delicious, and everyone went to bed that night with a smile on their faces and full bellies. Genmaki had disappeared after he finished his plate and hadn't come back yet. Naruto and Ino lay in bed content after yet another round of fun. Naruto trying to get his strength back and Ino wondering how their life would be now. A loud boom outside the window made both jump out of bed, and they ran to the door and poked their heads out, seeing that Hikaru had done the same. Throwing on some pants and whatever shirt he could grab, they all ran downstairs and out into the large backyard where a wide-eyed Sakura and her children stood by Genmaki. Across from them stood 3 large foxes, and all had 8 tails. King Naruto, it is a pleasure to finally meet you. We are the Council of the Vulpine Kingdom, and we have come to fetch you so that you may serve the realm. We have heard that you have a few concessions before you do, however, and we have much to discuss. Naruto sighed and relaxed visibly. At least it wasn't an enemy invasion. Very well, honored councilman. Come inside and we shall discuss what we shall do. And stay off the couch, I don't want you shedding any fur on it. The 3 foxes looked at each other and burst out laughing. Genmaki was right about you. You are an interesting choice for king. This shall be a most entertaining night, we can already tell. Naruto just grinned and walked back into the house, calling over his shoulder. You'll find I can do more than just crack jokes, councilman. Much, much more. Chapter 12. Naruto and Ino sat on the couch with the Vulpine Council facing them, sitting on pillows that Naruto had thrown down. Sakura and the children were instructed to wait in her house on the grounds. The foxes were not very impressed with this display, and one let it be known that the Vulpine stood on ceremony. Even the old Kyuubi had been a stickler for tradition and pomp. Naruto glared at them and shook his head. I'm sorry to inform you, honored council members, but I do not stand on ceremony. I may have been born of noble blood, but I was not raised a nobleman. I lived alone my whole life, I had no one to love me, and everyone ignored me. I don't like pomp and circumstance, I don't like formalities, and I don't like it when someone tells me that tradition outweighs what is right. Do not presume that I will stand by what has been done for so many years. I will do what is right for my people, nothing more, nothing less. You see, honored council members? Lord Naruto is the best choice we could possibly want for king. He is kind and wise, strong and firm. I believe. At this point the large white fox growled at Jinchuuriki, who flattened his ears and tucked his tail. Do not speak out of turn here, Jinchuuriki. Your opinions have already been duly noted. You were only to observe the prospective king, not befriend him. I feel your judgment has been clouded. We let you carry your post too long. A loud guttural growl was heard to the front of the Vulpine Council, and they turned to see a very irate Ino and a fuming Naruto with glowing blue eyes. His tail swished angrily and his whisker marks, teeth and fangs had become undeniably pronounced. Even in the dead of night people could feel the unbridled anger rolling off the Vulpine King. The pressure he was emitting was suffocating, and the council in front of him were terrified. Without changing to his fox form, Naruto's voice deepened. You will never speak to a friend of mine in such a manner. He has stood by me since my ascension to king, and you will respect him the way you respect me. If you believe me unsuited for being your king, then by all means piss off and go away. But know this. This power is mine, and if you try to seal it away, I will come down upon you with a terrible vengeance. I have dealt with a pompous council once already in my mortal life, and I shall not deal with one in my own realm. If you do not like this, then tell me now, and we shall do something about it. The blue-furred fox stepped forward and bowed its head respectfully. We meant no disrespect, Lord Naruto. It is just that Jinchuuriki is only a five-tail. He does not have the wisdom or privilege to speak here unless spoken to. Then I will give him the privilege. My mate is only a two-tail. Does this mean that she as well must hold her tongue when something needs to be said? Your tails do not belie your knowledge. They only signify your status and power. The lowliest commoner can have the best sense and the noblest blood. Fools are born to all lines, but the truly noble and greatest of us all work for their status. Under my reign the foxes will prosper, not because they look down their noses at those beneath them, but because those willing to work for their station will be rewarded greatly. If I deem a fox worthy of more power, I will grant them such. I will not deny even a commoner a chance at happiness because they were born of low station. The gray fox stood and bowed. So Lord Naruto, what you are saying is that as regent you will bring all classes together? That is foolhardy. It will never work. And why not, councilman? The white fox spoke again. Because the class system is there for a reason. It is there to show who are the betters and who holds the lowest of blood. The upper class rules because we are fit to rule. The lower class serves because that is what they are born to do. Then as soon as I get to the realm I will break those barriers down. I have seen what class and pure blood can do to the will of humans. I will not have my people be subjected to those horrors any longer. I have seen a family torn asunder by the absolute fanatic need to preserve the pure blood. I have seen a family murdered in cold blood because one thought himself better than all the rest and wanted to test himself. I will repeat, I will not let this happen on my watch. The white fox looked at Naruto with his eyes aflame with anger. And you would have us do what? Let the commoners run amok? Have their own traditions and make them equal to us? My clan has been among the elite for Ian's kit. I would not presume that the council would let you waltz in and change our traditions and ways of life simply to satisfy your own need to be accepted. This is not how a king rules. So you would have me rule through fear? Fine, I can do that too. Before anyone could make a move, Naruto had charged across the room and pinned the white fox to the wall by his throat, his eyes blazing and his claws extended, his voice once again demonic. All but Ino looked on in shock. She merely thought the pompous fox was getting what he deserved. Now see where your station gets you? I don't respect those who don't deserve it. You don't deserve my respect, nor will you remain on this council if you keep acting high and mighty. If you are as wise as you say you are, you will hold your tongue and act as a councilman should. You will act for the benefit of your people, not yourself. This is how the new kingdom of the Vulpine will be led. All are equal or none have freedom. You have chosen me for the job, now let me perform my duty. Jinchuuriki was beside himself. On one hand he was shocked that someone had defied the council. Not even the previous Kyuubi had taken the council head on. On the other hand he was ecstatic. His new king had just proclaimed that the Vulpine would all be equal, no more class, no more injustice because of a low birth. It was a good time to be a fox. Ino was proud of her mate. He was exhibiting all the necessary qualities of a king. He would listen to the council members, but he was a man of the people. Always had been, always will be. He hated injustice, he hated piousness, and he hated blue bloods. This white fox had just dug his own grave. The other two council members were in shock. Even the previous QB had kowtowed to them when pressed. This new monarch would obviously rather fight them tooth and nail than give in to their demands. They were both of the upper middle class of the Vulpine. High enough to be granted a council position if they showed enough initiative, but still of low enough blood to be looked down upon by the highest of the foxes. Perhaps just maybe their new monarch would prove beneficial to the people. The blue fox stepped forward. Lord Naruto, please put the elder councilman down. If he spoke out of turn, let him make amends and put things right. Naruto didn't turn around. He kept the white fox against the wall with one hand and addressed the blue fox. What is your name? The blue fox started at this. No one had ever asked a council member for their name. My name is Kazuma. Kazuma of the Ebon Forest. Why do you ask? Because I would know the names of my subjects. And your fellow councilman? The gray fox replied in kind. My name is Hinamori of the Golden Plain. No QB to our knowledge has ever asked the names of the council. Why is it important that you know our names? Because I wish for you to trust me and believe in my cause. I want to create a kingdom where all are equal and everyone prospers, not a place where the wealthy and strong make the destitute and weak serve them. The strong exist so that they may serve the weak. For even the weakest of body can have the strongest mind. Even kings need advisors that have more than muscle. And I apologize, councilwoman, not recognizing your gender beforehand. Hinamori and Kazuma pondered on this and were suitably satisfied with how their new regent acted. They had never been ones for holding down the lower classes, but were the youngest on the council and were expected to hold their tongues. Hinamori spoke. Very well. We will trust you. What of the elder councilman, though? What will you do with him? I believe in second chances for some. He made a bad first impression, but I will allow him a chance to prove himself. I will not put up with any nonsense on his part, though. He will not seek to subjugate our people, or I will end it swiftly. I will not have dissension in the ranks. Naruto narrowed his eyes and lowered the elder to the floor gently, where he bounded away and back to his cushion. Insolent kid, do you know who I am? No, but you're going to tell me. I am Jinjo of the White Crown. My clan is the elite among the Vulpine. I will not be slighted by one who thinks he is above me. Naruto walked to the fox and looked him in his eyes with a glare that made everyone shudder. By your class system, Elder One, I am above you. My blood runs thicker than yours, and by all rights I should kill you here for slighting me. Just because you think you are noble, I am supposed to bow to you? I think not. Since you stand so firmly on tradition. Tell me, Hinamori Kazuma, what happens traditionally when someone insults the king or threatens the king? The two foxes looked at one another and wondered at their monarch's ingenuity. He had just turned the table on the elder councilman by using his own love for tradition against him. Kazuma offered his thoughts. Well, Lord Naruto, by law it is your right to kill him where he stands. None may slight the monarch, not even a high council member. What will you do now? Naruto, who had never took his eyes off the white fox, smirked when he saw the flicker of fear in the old fox's eyes. Since he stands so strongly upon tradition, since he seeks to uphold his honor as a nobleman, I believe my first order as regent will be to have him combat the strongest of the so-called lower class. The white fox leered at his new monarch, the fear now totally gone. Ha, you seek to punish me like that? The strongest of the lower class is simply a five-tail like Genmaki. Surely you don't mean to make me fight him? The feral grin that passed onto Naruto's face sent shivers down the spines of all present. Of course not. Since you seem to see me as beneath you, you shall fight. Me. It seemed the room was a vacuum because all the air seemed to be sucked out of it when Naruto made his proclamation. The silence was broken by Ino's happy clapping and a snort from Genmaki. The white fox resembled a fish, what with his mouth opening and closing. You can't be serious. I can't fight the monarch. It is against tradition unless the monarch feels his rule has been encroached upon. Exactly. You seem to think that you can rule better than me, so why not fight to prove that you are better than me? We shall fight tomorrow in the realm in front of all the people at full power to prove whose ideal is right. Tradition or change a corrupt class system designed to keep the people in check, or a system that favors everyone and gives all the people a chance to excel. You insolent little worm. How dare you presume that you are more powerful than me? I am an 8-tail and have fought many battles against our enemies. My power is without compare. I was almost able to beat the previous QB. What makes you think that you, a youngling, can beat me whether you are the QB or not? I can beat you for the exact reason that I am young and am not the QB of old. I am better, and I will show you my power when we fight. You elder will go and announce your battle to the people. Tell them to come and watch as you wipe the floor with the new king. Let them regale in your power. Go now. The old fox merely smirked and left to tell the kingdom of the battle tomorrow. Naruto smiled and turned back to the other 2 council members. Now that the pompous ass is gone, I would like to ask the 2 of you what you think. Do you think I will be a good king, or will our people hate me for trying to change our kingdom? Hinamori and Kazuma were dumbstruck at their new king. Hinamori was the first to regain her senses. Lord Naruto was that wise? The elder is very strong, and he wasn't simply boasting when he said he could almost take on the previous QB in battle. I think you should withdraw your challenge. Come now, Hinamori, have you so little faith in me already? I'm hurt. It's not that we don't trust you, Lord Naruto, it's just that Hinamori and I don't know your abilities. I'd rather not have you die and the elder become king. I don't know you, but I'd rather have an evil I don't know than an evil I do. Sigh. Jinmaki, do you trust me on this? With my life and on my honor. I would follow Lord Naruto to hell and back. If he believes he can beat the elder, I believe him. Hehe, I've learned never to go against him on a challenge. He always wins. Be that as it may, Jinmaki, I just don't know. Ino made herself known to them at this point. If my husband says that he will beat him, he will beat him. Tell me, how big is this Jinjo in his full form? He is at least the size of the previous QB. Then Naruto will defeat him soundly. My husband is twice the size of the previous QB. And though we are young, we also have battle experience. Naruto has come closer to death than most ever will, and he crawls back from death's door each time stronger and wiser for the experience. My husband will win. And on that note, we shall go to the kingdom tonight. Ino, I'm sorry, but I need you to stay here and watch over everyone. There's no telling what our enemies in the village will try to do if we both left. While I'm gone, I expect Tsunade to move into one of the other houses on the grounds or to move in with Sakura. Either will do. He crossed the room and took her in his arms, holding her tight. She leaned into the embrace and shared a kiss with him. Forgive me, my queen, but I go to secure our kingdom. I'll return to you with good news. Try to have some for me too. Goodbye, and tell Hikaru I love him. I will. Goodbye, Naruto. I love you. I love you too. Alright guys, let's go. Holding on to Jinmaki, they disappeared into the realm of foxes. Ino watched with tear-filled eyes. Please, Naruto, come home safe. Scene change, Naruto felt his feet touch on solid ground again and opened his eyes. He had expected open fields and instead found a vast city filled with foxes of all colors and sizes. There were old wizened foxes lounging in the sun. There were small kits frolicking in the fields outside the town. There were merchants and vendors hawking their wares. Before anyone could see him, Naruto transformed into his fox form. The others looked at him questionably. I don't want my people thinking I'm too different from them just yet. I want them to trust in me first. After the fight, I'll reveal who I am. Until then, I wish to walk among them as a normal fox. Let them think I am a dignitary, and we shall see what happens. The others nodded to his desires and they walked through the city. Naruto watched as the foxes bowed to the 2 council members and seemed to smile when they saw Jinmaki. When they looked at him, though, they were perplexed. They had never seen him before, and all the council and nobles were well known, so that you didn't slight them. He took notice of the looks and the hesitant nods and bows that he received. He stored that information for later. Then his ears picked up a conversation he had been waiting to hear. Have you heard of the challenge that happens tomorrow? The new king and the elder councilman will do battle. It should be a most interesting match. I hope the new king is better than the old QB. I at least hope he wins over the councilman. Our lives would be miserable if he won. I agree. Oh, here come some council members. Be polite. Naruto watched as the two gossiping foxes bowed politely, earning a glare from the two council members. Once they were past, Naruto turned to Hinamori. What was all that about? Does the council instill such fear that they demand respect even in passing? We merely wish respect for our position. Is that not so much to ask? No, I admit it is not. However, what happens if they don't show the proper respect? Then they are punished. All we require is a quick bow or nod to show respect. I don't see what. Oh, now I see. Sigh. Yes, some of the council abuse this privilege and try to bend the public to their will. It is one of mine and Kazuma's worst shames. We are the youngest of the council and cannot do much about it. But maybe with you we can change that. I'll see to it personally. The walk continued in silence until they came to the palace. Naruto's eyes bugged out when he saw his new abode. It was enormous. Obviously, the previous Kyuubi liked to rest in his full form. He turned to Genmaki. I don't want to stay here tonight. Let me sleep at your place. The council members were appalled by this. Before they could argue, Naruto quieted them. Look, Genmaki has been a guest in my home for years now. The most I can do is grace his home. Besides, he is my friend and I expect him to invite me over every now and then. Genmaki smiled and looked at the council members. If he didn't know better, he could see shock and... Was that a hint of jealousy? He was going to live a long and happy life. His smile turned into a feral grin. With his king beating a council member, his life got a whole lot better, especially since the old asshole tried to belittle him constantly. I would be honored to have you in my home, Lord Naruto. My wife and children would be happy to meet you. I have told them much of you. Perfect. Let us go there then. Hinamori Kazuma, thank you for your help. Let the masses know that the battle is at noon tomorrow. If you need me, I will be at the residence of Genmaki. With a nod of his head, he and Genmaki strode off to rest. Tomorrow would be a busy day. Hinamori and Kazuma watched them and turned, nodding to each other. Tomorrow would be an interesting day indeed. Scene change. When Naruto and Genmaki arrived at Genmaki's house, Naruto was amazed at how plain his friend's house was. It was small, and while it was comfortable, he knew that Genmaki deserved better. Naruto resolved to fix that little problem. He noticed Genmaki had stopped and had taken a deep breath. Please, Lord Naruto, do not look unkindly upon my home. It is small and not worthy of a king, but it is cozy and my wife keeps it clean. I hope you are at least comfortable. Do not worry, Genmaki. I am sure that all accommodations will be fine. Now then, how about introducing me to the missus and the children? Of course, Lord Naruto. After all introductions were made and Naruto had met Genmaki's lovely wife Charisse and his 3 kits. The kits fell in love with him immediately and were soon snuggled up beside him. He smiled and looked at Genmaki and Charisse. Should I show them my true form, Genmaki? They won't be too shocked, will they? I don't believe so, my lord. I think they will find you more lovable if you do. They have never seen a form such as yours. Charisse turned to her husband, highly confused. Husband, what do you mean? If Lord Naruto turns into his full form, our house will be demolished. That would be true, Charisse, if Lord Naruto had always been a demon. I never told you, but Lord Naruto was once a mortal man, a human, and therefore can access his full power in both his human and fox form. He simply prefers his human form. Really? That would be interesting. I've never seen a human before, only heard about them in legend. Aren't they supposed to look like hairless apes? She heard Naruto laugh and the kits looked up at him as he stood and moved away from them. They were slightly perturbed that their warmth had disappeared, but were spellbound as flame engulfed him and he appeared before them in his human form, clad in his forsaken Samaritan clothing, with his tails waving proudly and his ears twitching. The children and Charisse were dumbfounded. That is until the kits' natural curiosity kicked in and they scampered up to Naruto, asking him question after question. He answered them all and then sat down with his legs crossed in the middle of the floor and let the kits clamber over him while he scratched their ears and rubbed their fur. They purred in contentment while Charisse sniffed him, trying to find any deception. Genmaki merely watched with amusement, trying not to laugh at his wife and children. Naruto finally decided to change back to his fox form to the chagrin of the children who had begun to drift off to sleep while he rubbed their fur. He made up for it though by keeping them warm at night. He offered to babysit while Genmaki and Charisse had a night off. It wasn't often that he got to be of much use to Genmaki, so he tried to make up where he could. He thought of it as payback for watching Hikaru. Content to just be warm while the kids curled against him, he went to sleep thinking of the next day and dreaming of his family at home. Scene change, the morning came too quickly for Naruto and the kits. Genmaki woke them all with a whack of the tail, earning a harsh tongue lashing from his wife for striking the king. When he told her how he punished the king's son, she nearly fainted, and Naruto got up grumbling. He didn't want to leave his dream about Ino, but he had to prepare himself for the battle ahead. After a brief meditation to calm his nerves, they left the house and headed for the field where the battle was to take place. It was enormous, and there had to be over 1,000,000 foxes there, all waiting to see their new king and the elder fight. There hadn't been a battle of this magnitude in ages, and no one wanted to miss it. Especially with the ramifications it could mean if the new monarch lost. Everyone who had that thought shuddered and quickly shook their bodies to relieve themselves of the horrid thought. They watched as Genmaki and an unknown fox approached the council and a widely grinning Jinjo. "So Genmaki, this is Uzumaki Naruto, our new king? He doesn't look like much." Genmaki saw the grimace on Naruto's face and quickly spoke to end the tension. "This is he. I place my life in his hands and my trust in his reign." "Very good. Let us get this over with." Councilman Jinjo, Lord Naruto, proceed to the battlefield. The battle is over when one dies or gives up. Begin when ready. Naruto and Jinjo padded to the middle of the battlefield and stood facing each other. He heard Genmaki yell for everyone to stand back, and the mass of foxes made a ring around the battlefield. With their superior vision, they could watch the battle from afar and still see perfectly. Naruto motioned for Jinjo to go first as he was the elder of the two. Jinjo smirked and began his transformation. He always loved to show off his power, and it was never more evident than when he could take his true form. Normally the foxes kept their full power in check, since it wouldn't do to have mega foxes running amok. Naruto watched while the white fox grew to monumental sizes until he truly was as big, if not a little bigger, than the previous Kyuubi. The old fox roared with laughter as he looked at Naruto's face from in the clouds. "Now then, young one, are you scared yet of my fearsome might? Do you see why you should respect one who has been around longer than you and seen more battle than you ever will? Tell me, old one. How far will your shame go when I grind you into the ground? To lose to one so young as me, and yet I am more powerful than you ever were in your prime." "I am in my prime, you young fool. A fox demon only gets stronger as the years go on. Every day we wake up we are in our prime. Then I have nothing to look forward to except an eternity of unmatched power. Let me show you what I mean, old fox." To the wonderment of all present, Naruto began to grow and grow past Jinjo into the stratosphere. Where in the mortal realm he had been 3 times the size of Gamabunta, here he was twice the size of Jinjo. All eyes were wide as they looked at their new king. Jinjo was livid. The size of a demon was the size of their power, and if this was any indication, Naruto was twice as powerful as him. "Do you see now, old one? You should not have insulted me. Tell me, old one, what would you do if I told you this was not my true form?" "I would call you a liar. There is no way you can become bigger." "You're right. But I can become smaller. I would like to fight you in my real true form. I believe that being defeated by me when I am smaller will be sufficient enough to humble you significantly." Without another word, Naruto began to shrink until he was back in his normal form. He then let loose a burst of his power, erupting his body into flame until he stood before them clothed in his forsaken Samaritan outfit, his blue eyes seeming to shine ethereally. He could hear the many whispers from his people as to how immortal was their king, and yet he had more power than the elder. Naruto looked up at the elder and smirked. "Now then, old one. Shall we begin?" He heard the whispers again about how his voice had changed, and he shut them out to better focus upon Jinjo. The white fox let out a roar and tried to smash him with a paw. He deftly moved out of the way. Thus began a dodging game, with the elder trying to squish him and Naruto jumping out of the way, smiling the whole time. Jinjo began to get frustrated with his opponent. It had been nearly 10 minutes and no one had landed a blow yet. He growled low and screamed out. "Are you afraid to fight me, boy? Are you that much of a coward?" The masses felt a chill go through them as Naruto stood stock still and looked at the ground. Seeing his opening, Jinjo raised his paw and brought it down full force onto the golden-haired fox. He roared with laughter at his easy victory, and the crowd fell silent with downtrodden faces. They knew what would happen if the old fox became the king. His laughter died in his throat, however, when he felt a pressure on his paw that slowly built and built until it threatened to cut through. He leapt back and away, nursing his paw, and looked at the still-standing Naruto, who had wind whipping all around his body, making his clothing and hair dance in the hurricane force wind. All the Vulpine looked in awe at their regent, who had taken on an otherworldly glow. "Call me a coward, will you? I have been called many things in my life, Jinjo. Brat, weakling, demon, bastard, child, monster. I have been called much in my life, Jinjo, but coward has never been one of them." The Vulpine watched in horror as Naruto blurred from existence and reappeared on top of Jinjo's head. He growled deep in his throat and charged a Rasengan and drove it into the top of the white wolf's head. Jinjo howled in pain and rolled over, trying to crush Naruto with his weight. Naruto leapt into the air and came down hard onto the wolf's belly with a wind charge axe kick. It was becoming quickly apparent that Jinjo was outclassed in this match, even with Naruto a mere dust mite. Jinjo rolled to his feet as Naruto landed in front of him. "How are you so powerful in that form? It shouldn't be possible." "I'm powerful because I have something to protect from assholes like you. I was going to let you live, but no one calls Uzumaki Naruto a coward. Even my wife knows better." Deciding he had toyed with the old fox enough, Naruto began to channel all his power into his right hand. His whole body shook with power, and the aura around him changed to a dangerous red. To all apparent, their monarch was a terrible entity, one who brought down swift justice in a terrible way. He was more frightening than the previous Kyuubi, and yet the children had no fear of him. Jinmaki's children in particular were yipping and cheering for him. It was like he exuded a peaceful calm along with the killing intent. It was truly scary and exhilarating. The power in his right hand was excruciatingly painful, and he knew he couldn't hold it forever. He watched as the ball took shape and the winds began to form it into a shuriken spinning above his head. The old fox watched in horror as Naruto charged him, his fangs bared, and shoved the Rasen shuriken deep into his chest, rupturing his heart. Everyone leapt back as the titanic body came hurtling down, and once it had impacted with the earth, it shrank back to its normal size, its power no longer keeping it going. Naruto turned to his people and gave them a small smile. He truly regretted killing the old fox, but he had learned that mercy for people with narrow minds was not something that could be afforded. "My people, I am your king, Uzumaki Naruto. I was at one time a mortal man, the jailer of your previous king. He was sealed into me at birth, and I lived my whole life hated because of it. I hated the Kyuubi, I despised him. Your monarch had no honor in my eyes, and he attacked my village without provocation. Now I am the Kyuubi, and there will be changes in the fox realm. I am sorry about killing the elder councilman, but he was of the old guard and he looked down upon me and my ideals. I value above all else loyalty to one's country and one's ideals. All I ask from you, all of you, is that you help me to change the traditions of the kingdom to something that serves the whole realm and not just a select number." He turned fully to them and lifted his blue eyes and gave them a foxy grin. He truly looked like a fox even in his human form, and the way he held himself let the Vulpine know that he was a man of the people. "So what do you say? Help me out?" His answer was a chorus of yips and howls signifying their acceptance of him as their leader. Naruto's smile widened and he turned to the body of the now dead Jinjo. He saw several foxes gathering around it and he let the smile fall from his face. "I assume you are all from the White Crown clan? I am truly sorry for his death. It was needless. If only he had listened to me." A large brown fox stepped forward and bowed low before Naruto. "Do not worry, Lord Naruto. We do not seek vengeance. Jinjo was powerful, but he was not the wisest of us. He felt that might made right and not all shared his viewpoint. To the end, might was all he understood. It never occurred to him that someone could overpower him in battle. I and my clan will follow you in whatever you desire. Hail Kyuubi! Hail Kyuubi!" Naruto basked in the adulation of his new people and walked into the city to his palace to begin his new life as the king of the Vulpine. Once the battlefield cleared and the foxes had all followed Naruto to listen to his speech, only Jinmaki, his family, Hinamori and Kazuma were left on the field. Jinmaki had the biggest smirk on his face that a fox could have and turned his head to grin at the still gawking council members. See? Told you so. Nobody beats Lord Naruto. Nobody. With that he and his family left to go home. Hinamori and Kazuma stood like statues until Kazuma whispered into the wind. This will be a most interesting reign indeed. Hail Kyuubi. Scene change, in her sleep Ino dreamt of Naruto battling a giant fox. She cringed when it went to crush him and smiled when he defeated it, earning the love of his people. As she rolled to her side in her sleep she scowled, missing the warmth of her husband. The only intelligible words one could understand in her sleep were, "Come home soon, Naruto. I love you and I miss you." Chapter 13. Naruto scowled as he sat on the steps leading to the throne. He didn't want the people thinking he was too high and mighty, so he sat on the top step and addressed them. "All right, let's set a few things straight. I'm not stupid enough to barge in and think I'm going to change everything at once, but there are going to be some changes. I lived in a ninja village, a military state, and I liked the system there. It needed some amendments here and there, but for the most part Konoha got it right. They have a class system there too, and it's complete bullshit. Favoritism is one of my biggest peeves and I will not tolerate it here. Blood means nothing to me. If you are strong, you are strong. If you are smart, then you are smart. I don't believe that any one person is better than the next. In my younger days I would run around spouting how much better I was than everyone else. I was a fool. There were plenty better than me. Here in my kingdom all will have a chance to be of importance. I won't have a class system that keeps bright and promising minds and bodies down. All will have a chance or none will." The murmur that passed through the gathering of foxes was audible. If they didn't have a class system, how were they to tell who was important and who wasn't? Naruto caught some of the worried whispers and knew they came from the upper class. Do not fear. Those who consider themselves noble can still have their noble blood. But no longer will those of supposed inferior blood be relegated to mere servants or slaves. In my army those of strong body will be warriors and shall fight for our causes or the cause of our summoners. Those with sound minds will be advisors and strategists. Our people will unite in a way never before seen to the Vulpine. Is this acceptable? The council stepped forward and sat at the bottom of the steps, Kazama and Hinamori on each end and a large red fox in the middle. The red fox was obviously older than the other two and as such was the spokesperson. Lord Naruto, these are admittedly good ideas, but how can you keep a class system and still have equality? If someone is noble, then they will always be better than someone of ignoble blood. That might be true. But I don't believe so. I have friends back home who came from no-name houses. Rock Lee, Haruno, Sakura, Tenten, they all came from no-name houses or were orphans. But they are excellent shinobi, held in the highest esteem even though their blood does not wax noble. If one of the lower class shows aptitude or ability, we should not suppress it, we should encourage it. If we deny anyone the chance to better themselves, then we are cutting off our noses to spite our own faces. But what of the servants? What of the workers? What will happen to our quality of life? Your quality of life should not change. I merely wish to beef up our military and make our people knowledgeable. Tell me, do all the children know of the illustrious history of the Vulpine? No, the lower class children do not. That will be rectified. I want to put up a library of our accomplishments and let the children and any who seek knowledge be able to access it. The Vulpine are a proud race, a proud people, but over the years you have fallen to the side because of a terrible ruler and isolationism. You have sanctioned yourself off from the rest of the demon realms, and for what? To be left alone? To not know what goes on in the world outside? This must be changed. Very well. I find the idea intriguing at least. What of our summoners? I know that you have let some mortals sign the contract that has not been used for eons. Who has it, and are they trustworthy? Indeed they are. The signers are my wife and my son. I wish to let the children of my ex-wife sign as well, if only to protect them from their asshole of a father. I have offered our services as the protectors of Konoha, and I expect you all to serve in times of need. The contract will be passed down through my son's family, and it will be an heirloom. Your son? What need has your son for the contract if he is a fox? Naruto looked sadly down upon the crowd and a small smile adorned his face. My son is mortal elder. He was born when I was mortal and he will die before me. My wife is of demonic blood now though, and our children will be demon. But Hikaru is flesh and blood mortal, and so shall his children be. I only ask that you serve him if he calls. We shall without hesitation. I am sorry that your son is mortal. It is a difficult thing that no parent should have to go through watching their child die before them. Yes, I'm sure it will be difficult, but I shall cross that bridge when I come to it. Now then, that is all I wanted to talk about at the moment. I would like to wander my kingdom for the moment and mingle with my people. We will discuss the terms of how I want to implement these changes later. For now, everyone just relax and enjoy time with your families. And if you see me, at least say hello. The crowd chuckled and began to disperse. Their monarch would indeed be interesting. Jinchuuriki strode forward and climbed the steps, sitting to Naruto's right. What will we do now, Lord Naruto? You seem to have the support of the people, but can you make your plans carry through? Can we succeed in this endeavor? We can, my friend. We can indeed. I'm going to survey my kingdom now. I want you to check back in on Hikaru and Ino. Make sure Sasuke hasn't tried to pull anything funny, okay? Hi, my lord. Naruto watched as Jinchuuriki transported himself back to the mortal plane. He stood and stretched. It was time to make some rounds and maybe visit the toads. Scene change, Jinchuuriki arrived on the grounds outside the Uzumaki household in the middle of the day. No one was around and he couldn't sense or smell anyone in the house. It seemed odd to him and he didn't like the feeling it gave him. He'd never gone to the Fox realm and not come back to find Hikaru or Ino. It was disturbing. Catching a scent, he ran off toward the marketplace. Perhaps he'd find them there. As he ran through the market, he looked frantically for his young charge. His thoughts quickly turned to his two other charges and he swore to himself that he'd get them some guardians as soon as possible. With their father on the loose, it wouldn't do to have them unprotected. Catching a scent, he began to sprint to the location of the smell. What he saw made his blood boil. There, standing in front of his master's family, was the so-called Hokage with a group on Umbu behind him. His queen stood in front of the children alongside his master's ex-wife. This certainly didn't look good. Hiding quickly, he listened in on the conversation, deciding to step in when needed. He heard the Uchiha speak. If you know what's good for you, Uzumaki, you'll step aside and let me retrieve my children. They're mine to do with as I please, and as your Hokage, I suggest you do as I say. I'm prepared to use force. Ino snarled and bared her fangs. She was a fearsome sight, and when she began growling deeply in her throat, some of the Umbu took a step back. She flexed her fingers and cracked her knuckles. I don't think so, Uchiha. These children are under the protection of the foxes and you have a restraining order against you, if I remember right. Now run along like a good little Hokage before things get messy. Things will get messy if you don't let them come. Jugo Karen, come here. I don't have time for this. Get over here now. The two small children huddled behind Hikaru, who stood defiant to the Hokage. He wouldn't let his siblings and playmates be taken by anyone. Sakura, it seemed, was so mad she was on the verge of tears. Sasuke, I put a restraining order against you. You can't come near me or the kids. Go away and leave us alone. Sasuke smirked and pulled a scroll out of his pocket. It's amazing the things you can do as Hokage, especially when you have the council on a short leash. I abolished that restraining order and can move freely as I will. Those children are mine and will be raised and taught to be true Uchiha. I won't have them taught by an ignorant bitch or a fox whore. Now you two get over here. Ino was shaking, literally shaking with fury. She had to do something before this got out of hand. Calming herself with a deep breath, she gazed hatefully into the Uchiha's eyes. Jugo Karen, do you want to go with your father? Two simultaneous shakes of the head were her answer. Do you want to stay with me and your mother? Two rapid nods were her answer. There. Sasuke, these children don't want to be near you. You frighten them. I'm asking you as a human being and a father to leave them alone. They are mine. My flesh and blood, and mine to do with as I please. Umbu, take them by force. Ino immediately went into the vulpine stance that Naruto taught her and growled low in her throat. Don't you fucking move. The Umbu weren't sure what to do. They didn't want to disobey the Hokage, but Ino was a demoness now and could probably rip them apart. The two children in question were apparently under the protection of the new Kyuubi and his mate, and it wouldn't be good for them to be taken by force. One Umbu shuddered at the thought of what Naruto would do if he heard that the small Uchiha children had been taken against their will. It wouldn't be pretty. The Umbu leader stepped forward and bowed before his Hokage. Uchiha-sama, I'm sorry but I can't let my men get involved in a domestic affair. It would be unseemly. So you're telling me that you won't do what I say? Not in this instance, no. You're demoted. Now leave my sight. The Umbu shifted and balled his fists. You can't demote me for something trivial like this. This is unfair, Uchiha-sama. I don't care. I'm the Hokage. I have the power. You're demoted. The rest of you grab my children. A shout of Kuchios no Jutsu rang out and Genmaki was pulled immediately to Hikaru's side. Genmaki. Oh, I am so glad to see you. Indeed, Master Hikaru. What seems to be the problem? The Hokage is trying to take Jugo and Karen away from us. That will not happen. I shall see to it personally. The Umbu were even more nervous now. Not only was the queen of demon foxes in front of them but now a five-tailed fox stood before them too. To make matters worse, this would definitely get back to Naruto. The day couldn't get any better. Ino could see them fidgeting and decided to cash in on their nervousness. If you don't leave now, I'll summon Naruto and he'll definitely take care of this. Remember, Sasuke, we swore to protect Konoha and its people first. We swore no loyalty to the Hokage. And if you persist in this line of thought, we'll pack up and move to Suna. I'm sure that Gaara would love to have Naruto as one of his country's summons. Sasuke growled and turned around, his robes billowing in the wind. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. Your husband can't protect you forever and I'll have my revenge. I'll get my legacy back. Without another word or look back, he strode off toward the Hokage tower, leaving a less stressful Ino and Sakura and a few remorseful Umbu. The former leader took his mask off and bowed to Ino. My lady, I am sorry for what transpired here today. If only your husband had become Hokage instead of him, we would be better off. Of this I have no doubt. My only shame in living in this village is that our leaders have become so corrupt. I apologize for everything that happened here today. Do not apologize for things outside your control. You made the right decision. I'm only sorry that it cost you your position. The unmasked Umbu merely smiled and put his mask back on. A position is worthless if you don't have honor. Taking those children by force and against their will would have been a huge mistake. I won't subject them to that thing that calls itself a father. I have my own children and I hope they never act like that. I'd much rather they act like your husband. Ino raised an eyebrow. You mean act like a demon? The Umbu laughed and turned away. He looked back over his shoulder before he leapt away. If acting like a demon means being a kind, loving, loyal person, then yes, I want my children to act like demons. I worked with your husband on a few missions, my lady, and he is not a demon in heart, only in body. Good day to you. And with that he leapt off onto the rooftops. Ino turned back to the group with a smile, her tails waving happily. I think we should go back home before anything else happens today. We should tell Naruto when he returns about this little incident. And Hikaru? Yes, Mom? Thank you for summoning Genmaki. I didn't want to summon your father unless I had to. He might have been in a meeting with the council at the moment and it wouldn't look good if the queen can't take care of herself. Genmaki kept silent until they were inside of the Uzumaki house again. He let the two women get situated with a cup of tea and the children went off to play. Actually, Lord Naruto wasn't in a meeting with the council. He's wandering the countryside at the moment, taking in your kingdom. The people, as far as I can see, love him already. He made one hell of an impression. Oh? How so? He killed the elder councilman for looking down upon him. He didn't want to, but what king can have his people looking down on him like he was rubbish? It wouldn't be good. He's making headway though. He killed the elder? How? I believe the term was Rasen Shuriken. Ino scowled when she thought of that jutsu. It brought back bad memories. Memories of Asuma's death and watching Naruto shred his arm to pieces. He knows better than to use that jutsu. It hurts him too much. Why didn't he just transform and fight the elder that way? He was much bigger than the elder. You must understand, Lady Ino, that as a fox grows older they grow in power. Our bodies grow to accommodate this power. The forms you saw the council take are not but transformed states. The elder in all actuality was as large as the Kyuubi who tried to destroy Konoha. But Naruto's power is immense. He was as large as the Kyuubi here, maybe a little bigger. It wouldn't have been an easy fight. Genmaki smirked and had to bite back a laugh. Lady Ino, you don't think that the form Lord Naruto took here was all his power, do you? Sakura and Ino looked at each other quizzically. What in the hell was this loopy throw rug getting at? Genmaki, seeing their looks, decided to elaborate. That wasn't Lord Naruto's true form either. In truth, he is twice the size of the previous Kyuubi. His power is immense. Ino gaped at this. Was her husband really that powerful? She had been blowing smoke to the council that night when she said he was twice the size of the Kyuubi. It scared and exhilarated her all at once. Scared because he could kill her at a moment's notice. Exhilarated because he was all hers. But why didn't he let his full power be known? What's the ninja saying? Look underneath the underneath? If the Uchiha believes that Lord Naruto is only as powerful as the previous Kyuubi, he will underestimate him, leading to his downfall. You yourself grow more powerful every day, my lady. I don't feel more powerful. I was only as big as a Great Dane last time I transformed. True. But you only had one tail too. You'd probably be about the size of a small house now. Remember, my lady, that you have been a demon for far less time than Lord Naruto. He has essentially been a demon all his life, and as such he was acclimated to the power before he ever changed. It's simply a matter of time before your body catches up to your status as queen. Thank you, Genmaki. Knowledge is power and all that. Now care to tell me why you were hiding in the alleyway back there and not helping us? Genmaki lowered his ears and whined piteously. He had hoped that his queen hadn't noticed him in all the hubbub. I didn't want to interfere with something I knew nothing about. I had only recently arrived and was searching for you frantically. I thought something was wrong. You all handled yourselves admirably, however. I would like to talk to Lord Naruto about getting the Uchiha children some fox guardians though. Perhaps some three tails. I'm the first fox besides the Kyuubi and the council to come to the human realm in quite some centuries after all. Most think it's a legend. Tell me. What did my people think of Naruto's human form? The children loved it. They thought it was the coolest thing they had ever seen. I believe my children actually called him a hairless ape and asked if he was a relative of Enma the Monkey King. Luckily, Lord Naruto has a good sense of humor. Ino smiled at this and thought fondly of her absent husband. It's not in Naruto's nature to be angry at children for acting like children. He didn't have much of a childhood himself. Most of the time he loves to join the children in playing. It makes him feel young again. I know how he feels. My children didn't want him to leave the house. They were quite taken with him. I believe I should leave and ask for him to assign some guardians to Jugo and Karen. Perhaps you should have a fox too, Sakura. Tsunade as well. I shall find out. Excuse me, Lady Ino. Ino merely waved her hand and Genmaki disappeared to the fox realm. Sakura turned to her friend in awe, amazed that she handled all that so well. Ino, how do you handle that kind of news like it was nothing? Ino smirked and took a sip of her tea. Sakura, my husband is the king of all the foxes. I'm a Queen Lee, can actually use a jutsu, and my stepson is the heir to a contract that hasn't seen human hands for eons. What's there to be surprised about anymore? Sakura sipped her tea and thought on that. Shrugging it off, she wondered what color fox she might get. Scene change, Genmaki appeared behind his king, who was currently in the process of playing with several fox kits in a meadow. The kits ignored him, preferring to sniff and jump all over and around Naruto, who lay on his back watching the clouds. His ears twitched when he heard Genmaki crunching the grass beneath him. Whatcha need, Genmaki? I take it everything is ship-shape in the human realm? Actually, the Uchiha tried to take his children by force. Naruto immediately shooed the kits off him, receiving several menacing growls of annoyance. He ignored them and turned to face his friend and advisor. What happened? Is everyone all right? Do not worry. Lady Ino and Master Hikaru handled themselves admirably. Master Hikaru even had the presence of mind to summon me even though I was there watching. I believe you may need to step up your assigning a fox to the Uchiha children. You may want to put foxes with Tsunade and Sakura too. It wouldn't be a bad idea. You're probably right about that. Glad I thought of it. Genmaki frowned at the poor sense of humor. I thought of that, my lord. Naruto grinned at his friend. Yeah, but as king your ideas are my ideas, so whatever you get right I get credit for. That's not fair. Don't worry. At least I know you're smart. No matter what your wife says. Now any suggestions as to who to assign to what person? At least a 3-tail for each one. Some of the younger foxes would be best. They will bond to their charge well and will be loyal as long as they are treated with respect and dignity. Not like how Hikaru treats me. Heh, he only treats you like that because you let him. Be that as it may, the little brat shouldn't pull people's tails. It isn't nice, and I can't guarantee that the younger foxes wouldn't bite him. I'll keep that in mind. Let's go find some volunteers. We'll be looking for bright and strong foxes. Ones that will suit the personality of the person they will be guarding. They began their trek back toward the city. It would be difficult to locate foxes who were right for the right person. Naruto decided to go by personality. For Jugo, who was bold, he would need a fox that was humble with a good head on its shoulders. They found that in a 4-tailed gold fox named Jin. With one added to their troop, they continued onward. Karen was a shy girl, much like Hinata had been. No doubt because of the presence of an overbearing father who only pointed out her faults. They found in a park a 3-tailed red fox named Shin who was brimming with confidence and energy. Surely he would be able to bring the girl out of her shell. Sakura was a tough one to think of. She would need a vixen. Naruto didn't want to run the risk of a perverted fox, and someone who could help her with the children. The group found that in a kindly 5-tailed fox named Megumi who was watching over some kids in the park. She had none of her own and thought that watching over human children would be a wonderful experience. She agreed wholeheartedly. The last and most difficult was Tsunade. She would need a vixen as well, same reasons as Sakura, but she needed one who could keep her cool and think straight. Tsunade was too ruled by her emotions, especially when she'd been drinking. Naruto was nearly in a fit since he couldn't find one. Genmaki had an idea though, and the group streaked back to the park. There they found a 4-tailed fox of an amber color playing shogi. Her name was Penny, and Genmaki said she was the most intelligent fox he'd ever met. Flattered by the praise, she nonetheless turned them down until Naruto pulled his trump card. You like shogi, yes? The amber fox nodded. What if I said I had a master shogi player in Konoha, the likes of which you'd never seen before? I'd say you were bluffing. If I said he was a genius? Bluffing. Fine. I don't have time for this. Shikamaru could kick your ass any day of the week at any strategy game anyway. Any strategy game, you say? Perhaps I will go. But if he doesn't live up to expectations, I shall abandon my post. It would be much too troublesome to stay there in the mortal realm. Naruto's sweat dropped when he heard this. Ye gods, she's a female version of Shikamaru. Tsunade will love her. Suddenly a thought ran through his head and he spun around to face Genmaki. We need to go back to the palace. I need to check on something first. But Lord Naruto were not allowed in the palace. The rules. Fuck the rules. You're all coming, so deal with it. I need to check on something and you're all going to help me. After a short while in the disorganized library of the palace, Naruto had what he was looking for. With his troop in tow, Naruto went back to the mortal realm. Scene change. Ino was brushing the tangles out of her tails when she heard a loud pump from the backyard and looked out the window to see Naruto, Genmaki, and 4 unidentified foxes. She leapt out the window and tackled her husband to the ground. The foxes all watched with amusement. Ino, get off me. We have guests, you know. At least act like a queen. The foxes' eyes all went wide and they quickly bowed before her. One would think that they would have noticed the purple tails and ears, but it's easy to miss when a blonde missile comes out of a window. Ino had the good grace to blush and tell them to stand up. Please don't bow before me. I still don't officially feel like a queen yet. Naruto dusted himself off and looked up at the sky. It was dark out and the moon was hanging directly overhead. Ino noticed his confused look and asked him why he was staring like that. It was daytime when we left the fox realm. I wonder why that is. Does it take that long to travel between realms? I've never noticed it, Lord Naruto. Perhaps it does though. Ino saw fit to interrupt their musings by putting her hands on her hips and looking at them with her head cocked. Not that I mind having you home, but aren't you early? You've only been gone 4 days. Naruto gaped at her, his mouth wide. 4 days? We've only been gone 2 days at the most. It's not possible. Well, I'm pretty sure I can read a damn calendar and see the sky changing from day to night, and that's happened 4 times since you've been gone. I see. Time must move more slowly in the fox realm. That may be the reason for longevity there. Indeed. We shall look into it later, however. For now we have a task to attend to. Ah yes, thank you, Genmaki. Be a dear and fetch Tsunade Sakura and the kids, please. Why? Because I have their guardians here. Her mouth formed an O shape and she took off to the guest house to wake the others. She returned shortly with a disheveled Sakura, sleepy Jugo and Karen, and a severely pissed off Tsunade. She hadn't been able to sleep soundly in years, and now one of her best night's sleep gets interrupted. This better be good. Naruto noticed her frustration and decided to kick things off. Okay folks, I've got something you'll enjoy. We'll start off with Tsunade since she seems eager to get on with her beauty sleep, especially since she really needs it. What the hell did you say, brat? Kidding. Alright Tsunade, Penny, step forward please. The two stepped forward and eyed each other with curiosity. Tsunade was about to reach out and rub the fox's head when it spoke. Please don't pet me. I don't know you well enough for that type of familiarity yet. Well, perhaps we should get to know each other better tomorrow. I'm tired and now I'm thirsty. If any of you need me, I'm going to get some sake and go back to sleep. Penny cocked her head and asked politely. What is sake? Tsunade's eyes widened and she ran and hugged the fox around the neck. Oh, you poor dear, you don't know the wonders of sake? Come with me, we'll rectify this right now. As the two stalked off into the night, the only thing Naruto could think was too easy. His next match was Sakura and Megumi, who walked forward and sniffed Sakura, causing the woman to stiffen. Megumi's head shot back in surprise before she sat back on her haunches in front of Sakura and addressed her with her soft voice. You smell faintly of Lord Naruto in a familiar sense. The young one with yellow and pink hair also smells of the two of you. Tell me, is he your child? Yes, he is mine and Naruto's son. Really? I was under the impression that he was Lord Naruto and Lady Ino's son. No, he is mine. I'm Naruto's ex-wife. Ah, that is why you smell of him. I'm sorry if I dredged up bad memories. Not at all. Tell me. If I serve and protect you, will you let me play with the kids and be near them? I do so love children. Sakura's face softened and her body seemed less tense. She smiled at Megumi and scratched the fox's ear, making her purr in contentment. Of course, Megumi. You can play with them all you want. In fact, they play in the park with other children all the time. I guarantee you'll be a big hit. Thank you, my lady. Megumi followed Sakura back beside the children and lay down. Jugo stepped forward and the fox known as Jin strode forward and looked at his young charge. Jugo, being brash, let his feelings be known quickly. I'm not sure I want him. He looks lazy and stupid. Jin, to his credit, took this in stride and whacked Jugo on the head with one of his tails. The impassive look never left his face. I can see we're going to have to work on manners with you. You are too impatient, little one. You didn't even give me a chance to introduce myself. Lord Naruto, I have a lot of work ahead of me. Naruto chuckled and waved his hand dismissively. Jin simply picked Jugo up by the seat of his pants with one of his tails and sat beside Megumi, who scolded him for hitting the child. Jin just yawned and laid his head on his paws. He wasn't bored for long though, since Shin bounced forward a ball of perpetual energy. Hey, come one little girl, I want to meet you. Come over here. Karen was hiding behind her mother's legs and wouldn't have gone if Shin wouldn't have gotten bored and rushed over beside her, sniffing her up and down. Poor Karen just froze and looked terrified until Shin began to lick her face, tickling her. She couldn't hold her laughter in and was tackled to the ground while Shin used his tails and tongue to tickle her all over. Everyone watched the small sideshow until Shin let her up and the poor little girl caught her breath. There now nothing to be afraid of, see? I'm perfectly harmless. I think you and I are going to get along just fine. We'll work on your shyness first. Fanning your flames of youth will be easy with me as your guide and mentor. Everyone gaped in horror at what he had said. Naruto's thoughts were running overtime. Another Shikamaru I could take. An overly motherly fox I could take. Hell, a totally lazy version of an apathetic Gaara I could take. But not another one of those. Shin, you are never to use the phrase flames of youth ever again. But Lord Naruto, it would be most unyouthful of me. That either. That's a new law. But the springtime of youth. New law. But. New law. Once Naruto had calmed down enough, he put the rest of his plan into motion. Alright, I want all of you to cut your palm and then cut the paw of your particular fox. This will bind them to you in this realm. But remember, these are your only familiars. You can't have any more, it's a one-time thing, so treat them with respect. Vulpine, be nice and get to know your new companions. You'll be in the mortal realm for quite a while, so get acquainted with your surroundings, okay? Now everyone get busy. And someone tell Tsunade to do this when she wakes up in the morning. Scene change. Ino and Naruto stood side by side watching the people and foxes go to their respective houses and beds. Naruto quickly wrapped his arms around her and pulled her in for a kiss. I'm sorry, Ino, but I have to go back now. I've been here too long as it is. I'll be back soon, I promise. Okay. I wish I could go with you. Me too, sweetie, me too. What does our kingdom look like? It's beautiful, Ino. They'll love you there. No one else has fur like yours. You'll be a very popular little vixen. Do I have to go around in fox form? No, I usually walk around in my human form. The kids love it when I do that. Now I gotta go. I love you. I love you too. As Naruto disappeared, Ino sighed and began her trek back to the house. She stopped about halfway, a tick mark above her head. Hey, why didn't I get a cute fox companion? Chapter 14. Ino awoke from her slumber to the sound of several voices in her house. Wincing against the sunlight filtering in through the window, she pulled a pillow over her head in an effort to drown out the voices. No go. Her demonic senses were so elevated that the pillow wasn't doing anything but reducing it a couple decibels. Her ears pricked up when she heard the distinct demonicy timbre coming from several of the voices. No doubt about it, that was Genmaki and his fox brethren, her subjects. With a small growl of frustration, she flung the covers back and threw on a robe. After tearing a small hole in the back so that her tails could poke through, she walked into the living room. The sight of several different colored foxes and humans all conversing with each other was quite a sight. Sakura was giving a hungover Tsunade a cup of coffee while reprimanding her for drinking so heavily. Tsunade's vulpine companion was whining piteously and trying to cover her ears. She had never imbibed alcohol before and she wasn't taking it as well as Tsunade. Ino, upon seeing this, knelt beside Penny and put her fingertips to the fox's temples while emitting a small amount of chakra to relieve her pain. A small purr of contentment escaped the fox's throat and Ino smiled as she stood again. Penny looked up at her queen and bowed her head. Thank you, Lady Ino. That was quite a painful experience. Such a pleasant drink should not have such an unpleasant after effect. I don't think I shall be trying it again anytime soon. That's good, Penny. Try to get Tsunade to ease up as well. We need her sober more often than not. Of course. Tsunade, don't be a bad influence to my people. I don't want a bunch of fuzzy alcoholics stumbling around. Shut up, Ino. I have a headache. Ino just shook her head and sighed. She scanned the rest of the room and watched as the children played with Shin, who was weaving in and out between them in a small game of tag. Megumi sat on a couch off to the side with Genmaki beside her, both watching with the equivalent of a small smile on their faces. Jin had drugged a table with a shogi board on it off to the side and was now trying to coax a hangover-free Penny into a game. Hikaru had finally tackled Shin and they were engaged in a tussle that nearly broke one of her vases. Ino's eye twitched in annoyance. Hikaru knew better than to roughhouse in the house. Uzumaki, Hikaru. Take your ass outside if you want to play rough. Jugo, Karen, Shin, that goes for you too. Now go play outside. For choruses of yes ma'am were heard and footsteps sounded their retreat to safer ground. Squeal of joy were heard soon after and Ino looked outside to see Karen riding Shin like a horse while Jugo and Hikaru tried to catch him. She smiled and made her way into the kitchen for a cup of coffee. She sighed as she took the first sip. Ever since her demonic birth, everything had become more vibrant, more alive. Hell, even a morning cup of coffee could almost be orgasmic through taste alone. Realizing that Tsunade still hadn't bonded with Penny, she decided to get that over with. After a brief recollection of how to do it, she got the older woman and the reluctant fox to cut their respective appendages. While that went on, she went back to her coffee until she felt Jinmaki's eyes on her. Yes, Jinmaki? How can I help you? I am sorry, Lady Ino. I should have come sooner or done something sooner about the Uchiha. The Guardians would not be necessary if I had eliminated him when I thought it best. And do you think Naruto would have allowed you to do such a thing? I don't know, Lady Ino. It's just, I feel I could have done more. Tsunade had been listening to them while Sakura healed her hangover and decided to put her 2 cents in. Naruto isn't the type to kill needlessly, Jinmaki. I know you would do anything to protect Hikaru and your new charges, but you have to realize you can't be there forever and you can't be there all the time. Hikaru is a resourceful little boy, and with that fighting style Naruto and Lee are teaching him, he'll be a force to be reckoned with. Speaking of which, shouldn't he be joining the academy soon? Sakura nodded. Yes, he'll be joining at the start of the year. I just hope that Sasuke doesn't try to do anything unnecessary. He'd better hope he doesn't. I'll kill him myself. You'd better go watch the children, Jinmaki. Megumi has already gone outside. Of course, Lady Ino. Once Jinmaki was gone, Ino turned back to Sakura and Tsunade and took another sip of her coffee. She sighed and set the cup back on the table. It was part of mine and Naruto's plan to have me be Hikaru's Jounin sensei when he graduated. He is already Genin level though, and probably low Chunin. Tsunade looked up from her morning paper and blew some hair out of her face. So? What's the problem? He'll graduate, no problem, we all know that. Yes, but I want Jugo and Karen on my team as well. I want them all where I can watch them at all times. Besides, I'm the best teacher for them all, and Naruto knows enough about the Sharingan to at least help them along if they unlock it. I want Hikaru to wait until we have Jugo and Karen up to Genin level. It shouldn't take long, especially with academy requirements being as low as they are. Kawarimi, Abunshin and Henge aren't that difficult, and I'm sure that Sasuke forced history on Jugo and Karen. Yes, Naruto used to read history to Hikaru before I left. He's very knowledgeable. I think Naruto wanted him to be prepared and not have the education that he had when he was younger. Tsunade laid the paper on the table and tapped her finger on her chin. Well, let's go down and see what the children know. If we get an accurate assessment, perhaps we can have them all graduated by next year and continue to keep them training until they are ready for missions. Ino clapped her hands and began to walk away to get dressed. Yes, let's do that. At least we can set things in motion while Naruto's away. I think we'll all be pleasantly surprised by their advancement, especially Hikaru's. Sakura, however, had misgivings about the situation. But what about Sasuke? Would he allow the children to all be put on the same team? He is driven by pride. As long as there is no underlying motive that he senses, he shouldn't have a problem with it. Getting Irika to make the suggestion that they would all make a good team would push things along. Besides, all that is necessary really is the test. As long as we find out what the curriculum would be, then we can grill the children on what to expect. Sakura sighed and put her head in her hands. But we don't want other children thinking that our kids are privileged just because they didn't have to go through the academy. Tsunade, what's the shortest period of time that a student can go that would allow them to graduate? At least 1 full term. Anything less isn't allowed. So 6 months? We've got our work cut out for us. Let me get dressed and we'll get started today. After a brief tussle, the 3 youngsters were rounded up and made to stand at attention. Tsunade bent down to their level and smiled her brightest. Okay, kiddies, we have a proposition for you. Since Hikaru is the oldest, he should be attending the academy soon. Hikaru, how old are you now? I'm 8, but I'm going to turn 9 soon. You should have already started the academy, but that's not important. What is important is that we want all of you on the same team, so we're going to have to bring your skills up to academy standards. Hikaru, let's see what you can do. I'm going to create a Kage Bunshin and I want you to fight it in a taijutsu match, okay? Okay, Grandma. Tsunade made the appropriate hand signs and a copy of her popped into existence. Hikaru took his stance, legs slightly bent and his hands at his side with fingers crooked. Tsunade dropped her hand to signal the match beginning and Hikaru sprang into action. He ran straight for the clone, his body low to the ground, and made as if to sweep her legs out from under her. The clone leapt into the air and he pushed off the ground with his hands. The clone blinked in surprise when Hikaru went to plant his feet into her stomach but caught his legs and swung him back toward the ground. Hikaru caught himself on the ground with a handstand and began to twirl, kicking out with his feet while walking forward on his hands. Tsunade's clone was trying its best to keep the unorthodox little boy from landing a decisive blow, but it was becoming increasingly hard. He wouldn't give an inch, and if his taijutsu was an indicator, then Naruto had taught him well. The clone decided to see what he would do if he was pushed back and sent a half-fist punch toward him. His response was to grab hold of her hand and swing around her arm to try a kick at her face. There was no doubt the boy had talent. The clone grabbed his ankle and held him upside down while he flailed and squirmed before crossing his arms in a pout. The women all laughed at him and the clone sat him down before dispersing. Very good, Hikaru. I didn't expect you to actually hit the clone, of course, but you did well nonetheless. That taijutsu style is very unique. Who taught it to you? Uncle Lee taught me the basics of Goken, and then Dad taught me flexibility and unpredictability. I combined the two and made my own fighting style. Uncle Lee was very impressed. I see. And what did you decide to call it? I didn't name it, but Uncle Lee called it freeform. He said it described it perfectly. I just know it works. Of course you do, dear. Now then, can you do any ninjutsu or jinjutsu? I can perform a cloaking jinjutsu and I can dispel most. I know a few ninjutsu that Daddy taught me. Such as? Kage Bunshin Kawarimi. I can do the henge pretty well. I guess that qualifies as a jinjutsu though. I can do a few suiton jutsu and a couple of futon jutsu as well. Dad won't let me try the Rasengan yet though. With good reason. You don't have the chakra capacity for that yet. You will eventually though. Has Jiraiya been teaching you anything? No. Dad said he'd just try to use me to get women to like him, so I can't train alone with him. Your dad is pretty smart for an idiot. Alright then, Hikaru, you're through. Jugo, come here. Hikaru sat down beside Genmaki and Jugo stepped forward. Tsunade asked him what he could do. Well, father was teaching me the Uchiha style of taijutsu, but it was hard and I couldn't do it right. He wouldn't teach me anything else, so I'm not very good at taijutsu. Didn't Sakura try to teach you a taijutsu style? Mama wasn't allowed to teach us. Is this true, Sakura? An affirmative nod was her answer and Tsunade scowled. If Jugo wasn't proficient in a style, then it would be easy to find a style for him. They'd need to get Lee involved since he knew so many. Karen likely wasn't much better off. Okay, what about jinjutsu or ninjutsu? Father wouldn't teach me until I mastered the taijutsu style. Well, we'll start work on you later today, okay, honey? Jugo nodded and walked back to his mother quite forlorn. He hadn't felt this helpless for quite a while. Tsunade asked Sakura if Karen had even been trained yet. She was told no. The women all sighed. This was going to be difficult. They had to get a 6-year-old and a soon-to-be 5-year-old up to speed and academy standards. Since Hikaru was up to standards already, they decided to start on the other two. Sakura and Tsunade took Karen while Ino and Hikaru took Jugo. Their respective guardians followed. Karen stood timidly, not really knowing what to do. Sakura wasn't sure how they were going to break through her daughter's shyness, but perhaps Tsunade could do something. Tsunade put both hands on her hips and broke into one of her tried and true inspirational speeches. Karen, you can't afford to be shy and weak and timid anymore. You're a big girl now and you're going to have to start acting like it. I don't want any crying or sniveling while we train. Do you understand? Sakura's look was not a happy one after that little speech, but it was near close enough to the one Tsunade had given her years ago. Megumi and Shin didn't look very happy either. Tsunade was about to say more when Shin strode forward and sat down on his haunches, looking Karen right in the eye. Listen to me, little one. The world is not a pretty place sometimes, and we have to do things that we don't want to do. Fighting is one of them. Now I wish you and me could play all day long, but we have to make it so that you can play at least sometimes. Fighting is the world you were born into, and there is no escaping that. It's in your blood. Karen looked like she was about to cry and began to sniffle. But I don't want to get hurt. Then we will have to make it where you won't get hurt, little one. We'll have to train and train until you can't be beat. Do not fear. I'll be right beside you the whole time. Karen wiped her eyes and looked up with hope-filled eyes. You promise? I promise. Tsunade and Sakura watched the event with small smiles on their faces. Perhaps Shin was a good guardian after all. He was already able to instill hope into the small girl. Karen turned to Tsunade and Sakura and bowed before them. Mama Lady Tsunade, I am prepared to train. Show me what you can. I'll try to learn as best as I can. Well said, little one. Tsunade took a deep breath and looked at Karen. All right, from this day forward you will train with your mother and me. We will train you in our style and teach you chakra control. Tell me, can you sense your chakra yet? I think I can. Try to mold some for me. Karen put her hands in the ram sign and focused on calling forth her chakra. Tsunade and Sakura watched with bated breath as a small poof of dust began to swirl around her feet, signifying her chakra was indeed open. They smiled at this. Teaching her would be a lot easier now. All right, sweetie, let's start with taijutsu. We'll work on henge kawarimi and bunshin later. We need to get your reserves up first. Scene change, Jugo meanwhile was already on his way. He had unlocked his chakra and Ino had decided to start on chakra control exercises. This didn't sit well with the hyperactive child since he wanted to start on taijutsu. Ino was quick to nip rebelliousness in the bud. With a whack over the head that Hikaru winced, she laid down her law. Now see here, young man, I am your sensei here and you will do as I say. Let me tell you what Naruto had to do in his training and we'll see if I'm not being lenient with you. Oh yeah? I bet it's not nearly as hard as what you're making me do. His master threw him off a cliff. Do or die. Jugo looked at her wide-eyed and went back to trying to make the leaf stick to his forehead. He'd rather do this all day than be chunked off a cliff. He watched as Hikaru stood off to the side going slowly through some katas. He didn't like it that Hikaru was so much better than him. Ino frowned and whacked him on the head again. Don't lose your concentration and don't be jealous of Hikaru. He's older than you and his father is quite the slave driver when he wants to be. We don't know what style of taijutsu would be right for you, so we'll get Naruto to find one for you when he gets back. In the meantime, I want you to focus on chakra control and then we'll start on jutsu. I'm going to start making you and your sister wear weights all the time. We're going to make you kids strong. Jugo just nodded his head and concentrated on the leaf. His life wouldn't be so easy anymore, it seemed. Just when things seemed to not get any worse, Jin popped up. In your spare time I will also be training the three of you in strategy and patience along with Penny. You will learn strategy by playing Go and Shogi and reviewing old battles and giving your assessment of them. Patience will be learned over time by being patient. I'll have to think of exercises for you. Lady Ino, is this all permissible? Of course it is. Anything to help them get stronger. Hikaru could use a dose of humility and patience as well. Mom. It's true. You inherited your impatience from your father. Yeah, well, Dad says that you weren't exactly known for patience yourself. You leave me out of this, young man. Jugo, you keep concentrating. Hikaru, keep doing those katas. Both boys grumbled while the foxes sat and smirked. It was so fun torturing children. Scene change, Naruto had walked his entire kingdom by now and had met a good many of his people. He had to mind the time here since it was slower than in the mortal realm. He'd been here a half day already, meaning a day had gone by there. It would be difficult to balance the time needed here and there, but he'd manage. He always did. He just hoped that everything was going smoothly over there. Sighing heavily, he called the Fox Council together for a brief meeting. Thank you all for coming. Tell me, who are our allies? The foxes all looked at each other and the elder spoke as always. We have no allies, Lord Naruto. We are quite isolated from the rest of the demon realms. We've never had the need for allies. Well, I'm going to ally us with the toads and the slugs at least. The monkeys and snakes if I can. They are all allied with Konoha as we are, and I believe it would be beneficial if something ever came up. Have there ever been wars between any of the demon realms? Oh, of course. We rarely ever got involved though. The other demons feared the Kyuubi and his ferocious nature. Why do you wish for allies though? I have ties to the toads from my mortal years and the slugs are contracted to my ex-wife. The monkeys, I believe, were under contract to a man I considered my grandfather, and the snakes. The snakes I want on our side in case Uchiha Sasuke the Hokage tries anything funny. I don't want to have to fight them if I can avoid it. This sounds like a good idea. The council approves. Who will you contact first? The toads. I believe I'll invite Gamabunta and his children here for a visit. I still owe him a drink of sake from when I first signed the contract with him. Do you know the way to the Toad Realm? Hi, we do. It runs along our northern border. Would you like to send a messenger to invite them? Please do. Gamakichi wanted to visit our land anyway. I know this will be beneficial. The Fox Council bowed and went to find a swift messenger to deliver their invitation. It would be a momentous occasion for the Fox Realm. They hadn't had visitors from another realm for eons. Their new king certainly knew how to stir things up. Naruto sat on the steps leading to the throne and put his head in his hands. Staring out at nothing, his thoughts were elsewhere. I wonder how the kids' training is going. Wonder if I'll be any help at all. Scene change. Ino growled in frustration. It was difficult picking a taijutsu style for the Uchiha children. Neither one conformed to what the normal style was for an Uchiha, and Naruto wasn't due back for another 4 days. Karen especially was a difficult case. It seemed the Uchiha blood ran strong in the both of them as their chakra control was coming along nicely. Jugo could already perform a henge and Karen was fast on her way to being able to do that as well. Taijutsu was never Ino's forte though, and Sakura and Tsunade's style was more of a brawling type of fighting. Hikaru was trying to help where he could, but his freeform style was tailor-made for him only. Even with Sharingan it would be difficult to copy since it depended on flexibility and unorthodox movements that never melded together in a certain pattern. One move could always flow into the next, and that's what made it so unpredictable. Jugo had tried it but was too stiff for the workings of it. Karen had better luck, but that was only because as a female she was more lithe and limber than her brother. Ino sighed and turned to look at Tsunade and Sakura, who were sipping tea and making small talk while the children played with the foxes. A sudden growl from Jin made them all look his way, and they saw him stalk away from the shogi board, leaving a smirking Penny. Did you win again? Yes. As good as Jin is against a normal opponent, he is nowhere in my league. Is this Shikamaru I was told about around? I would like a strong opponent. I'll try to get him here. Perhaps this would be a good chance for the children to see how strategy between two master players works as well. I agree. The children could stand to learn from anything we are willing to teach. I would like to begin teaching them how to play soon. While they might not be a challenge now, they could prove a challenge later, and having a logical mind never hurts. Yes, I know. Shikamaru was on my team at one time. The guy is a genius. You'll be impressed, I promise. I hope so. As Shikamaru sat in his office, he suddenly sneezed. He glared down at the paperwork he was working on and wiped his nose. Troublesome papers. I knew I was allergic to this shit. Scene change. A small blue fox arrived in the swamp that was home to the toads. He looked around cautiously, not really liking the atmosphere. He much preferred the open fields and forests of his homeland. He narrowed his gaze and shook his head. The scroll he carried was a personal invite for the chief toad and his children to attend a dinner with the Kyuubi. He couldn't afford to slack off now. Worming his way through the swamp by leaping from stump to stump, he finally came upon a mountain that had mist swirling about it. He made to begin to climb when an enormous toad carrying a battle axe leapt from nowhere and landed in front of him. The blue fox let out a squeak and lowered his ears. The toad looked at the diminutive creature in front of him and bellowed. Well, what have we here? A fox outside its territory? Tell me, furry one, have you lost your way, or do the Vulpine intend to invade? The blue fox glared and set the scroll down in front of its paws. I come in the name of the Vulpine and our new king to offer an invitation to your chief Gamabunta. In this scroll are the words of our new Kyuubi. He would see your master soon. And who is the new Kyuubi? I had heard a rumor that the old one had finally perished. The new Kyuubi is Uzumaki Naruto. The toad began to sputter and spit, its eyes bugging out. The fox thought it had said something wrong until the toad began to bellow with laughter. So Naruto is the new Kyuubi? Damn, that boy is full of surprises. Never met him myself, but he's a goddamn legend in the Toad realm. Gamabunta speaks highly of him and Gamakichi is like a brother to him. I'll deliver your message personally, Foxy. If it's all the same to you, I was supposed to make sure the message got there myself. Fair enough. Follow me and try to keep up. The toad began to leap from plateau to plateau up the mountain, the fox always just a step behind him. Near the top they came upon Gamabunta talking to the toadseer. And what is this, may I ask? A messenger from the foxes? To what do I owe the honor? My lord Gamabunta, my lord Uzumaki Naruto wishes an audience with you at your convenience. Gamabunta smirked and took a long drag on his pipe. So the brats finally got around to calling his old boss to dinner, eh? Tell that little runt that I'll be there in a few days. Of course, my lord. He says to bring your children as well. Ah, thank you. Gamakichi and Gamatatsu will be pleased to know they can come. You may go now and thank you. As you wish. The little blue fox sped off wanting to get home to green grass and green trees. Gamabunta took another drag on his pipe and looked off toward his southern border. So you really did it, huh? Guess I'll see what you've done with the place soon enough. Blowing the smoke out slowly, Bunta smiled. That Naruto never ceases to amaze him.
Thank you for your views, likes, subscriptions, and overall support of my ongoing efforts to bring great content to all of you. Check out my Patreon for more mature fanfiction. The link is in the description and like everywhere on my channel.